Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into silk slippers and shuffling through the lacquered gates of a world most people never saw, and even fewer escaped. You're going to step into the Forbidden City, not as an emperor, not even as a concubine, but as a lowly servant. That's right. You're not here for glory or romance. You're here to scrub things, quietly, forever. You feel the towering red walls close in behind you, the air tasting like old incense and cold stone. Your head is shaved, your robe stiff, and your legs sore from days of kneeling in the same spot during orientation, a term that mostly involved being shouted at in polite tones. And in case you're wondering, yes, you're probably not going to survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. Because somewhere in the world, someone's trying to fall asleep to the sound of ancient slippers on marble. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The gates groan behind you, then slam shut. You flinch, but don't dare turn around. That kind of behavior can earn you a swift cuff from the eunuch leading your group. You're 13, maybe 12, but you've lied and said you're 15 to seem more useful. A faint scent of sandalwood clings to the air, but it can't cover the mix of human sweat, horse dung, and lacquered wood that defines your new home. The sun glints off golden tiles above, those iconic roofs you've only seen from a distance. Now you're beneath them. And no, it doesn't feel magical. It feels heavy. Your feet crunch on gravel. You're told not to speak unless spoken to. And even then, maybe don't. Your clothes itch. You're still wearing your village boots, though someone said they'll burn them once you're processed. Welcome to Beijing. Welcome to the Forbidden City. You pass 2 stone lions, their mouths open in eternal roars, their eyes blank with disdain. One has a paw resting on a globe, the other a cub. You wonder which is which, then wonder if that's something you're supposed to know already. Spoiler, it is. The eunuch finally stops. His robes are crimson, his expression carved from centuries of contempt. This is the hall of mental cultivation, he says in a nasal, drawn-out voice. You won't be entering it, ever. Okay, good talk. You're herded through a narrow archway that opens into what seems like an endless courtyard. Stone pathways zigzag between manicured trees and low walls with glazed tiles. You squint up and catch your first glimpse of the main palace. It seems to float above you, tiered and golden, its beams painted with dragons, clouds, and other symbols you definitely haven't memorized. Historians still argue whether new servants were deliberately overwhelmed on their first day, or whether the chaos was simply the natural rhythm of palace life. But either way, your brain is full of colors and rules and stares and faces and danger. Because here's the kicker. No one tells you what to do next. You're handed off to an older boy who barely acknowledges you. You'll sleep with the hall sweepers, he says, gesturing to the eastern barracks. And then he vanishes into the fog of incense and duty. You don't even get to drop your bag. Someone grabs it and disappears. You're left clutching a cloth pouch of steamed buns your mother made you take. They've already cooled. So have your fingers. That night, you don't sleep. The stone bed is hard. The blanket smells like mildew and feet. The boy next to you grinds his teeth. You hear rats. At least you think they're rats. Could also be ghosts. You've heard rumors about dead emperors, poisoned concubines, eunuchs who took secrets to their graves. You roll over and over and over. Your stomach growls, but you don't dare eat a bun. You need to make them last. And then, just before you finally drift off, a bell rings. It's not even dawn. Outside, the forbidden city begins to stretch awake. Lanterns flicker on like fireflies. Servants scurry. Eunuchs bark orders with voices pitched like reed flutes. You jump out of bed, scramble to tie your robe, and nearly trip over someone's discarded wash basin. Your new life is already moving, and no one's waiting for you to catch up. Did I mention that the city has over 9,000 rooms? That's not a joke. That's an actual number. And each one has a floor that needs sweeping, a rug that needs beating, a robe that needs folding. And you? You've been assigned to the lowest of the low, courtyard detail, which, yes, means sweeping outside in winter. Here's a fun tidbit. The outer courtyards were designed to impress visiting dignitaries, so the flagstones are polished and expansive, which also means when it snows, they turn into vast, treacherous death traps. And guess who gets to shovel them? That's right, you and a broom made of twigs tied with hemp. By mid-morning, your fingers are so numb you accidentally drop the imperial dustpan. It clangs against the stones, like a gong. Heads turn. You freeze. A senior eunuch strides over. His eyebrows are sharp enough to slice tofu. "Is this your first day?" he asks. You nod. He sighs and walks away. Could have been worse. Could have been a cane. That afternoon, as you're scrubbing bird droppings off a decorative phoenix tile, a tiny child in an embroidered robe walks past. He's flanked by attendants carrying scrolls, a cushion, and a bowl of something that smells expensive. "Who's that?" you whisper. "Third prince," someone mutters. "Someone, be careful." His tutor once had a servant whipped for sneezing. That night, back in the barracks, you finally allow yourself one steamed bun. It's cold, dense, slightly sweet. You chew slowly, savoring every bite like it's roasted duck. And as your head sinks into the stone-hard pillow, one thought echoes in your tired little skull. You are never getting out of here. Section 2. The rooster crows. But let's be honest, you've been awake for hours. You're lying flat on your back on the brick bed, staring up at the cracked beams above you, wondering if they'll fall on your face. Around you, boys begin to stir. Some cough, some groan. One is already lacing his cloth shoes with fingers that move like they've done this 1,000 times, which frankly, they probably have. You don't have time to think. A bell chimes in the courtyard. Once, twice, then silence. That's your cue. If you're not upright and dressed by the 4th chime, someone with a stick will personally remind you of your obligations. Trust me, it won't be poetic. Today is your first formal training, which sounds fancy, until you realize it's mostly learning how to bow, over and over again. You trudge across the courtyard, your broom calluses already stiff, and gather in a half-frozen corridor where a man in pale silk waits. He's tall, skeletal, and his eyebrows curve like sinister calligraphy. This, he intones, is the art of reverence. It must live in your bones. Right. What follows is 4 straight hours of nodding, bowing, kneeling, rising, bowing deeper, then rising slower. All done in unison. All done in complete silence. If someone creaks, coughs, or, heaven forbid, farts, everyone starts over. You thought bowing was just bending a little. No. Here, it's a science. The imperial bow has 3 components: the tilt of your head, the curve of your spine, and the angle of your hands. Get one wrong, and you look like you're mocking a deity, which is not great for job security. Historians still argue whether this rigid protocol was designed more to honor the emperor or to keep servants terrified and obedient. Probably both. Maybe also for entertainment value. One poor boy next to you wobbles on the 5th round and collapses. He's whisked away by a eunuch, never to be seen again. Heat prickles your scalp. Your knees scream. You keep going. By noon, your thighs feel like boiled noodles. You finally get a break, just long enough to eat rice gruel that tastes like disappointment and rinse your face in icy water from a cracked basin. You still haven't been allowed to bathe. That's a weekly privilege, and only if you haven't screwed up. So, not this week. After the break, it's time for floor exercises. Your body must flow like silk, your instructor says, as if that's a helpful image. You're told to practice kneeling so smoothly that not a wrinkle creases your robe. You know what's hard to do? Kneel on stone floors with grace when your knees are raw and you're wearing a robe made for someone 5 inches taller. One of the other trainees whispers, "At least we're not eunuchs." You glance at him, and he flashes a sheepish grin. You try to smile back, but you've heard the stories about how friendly conversation can get you labeled unfocused. So you nod and stare straight ahead. Friendship will have to wait. Your instructor claps. Now, let us learn the 1,000-fist bow. You have no idea what that means. Turns out, it involves pressing your fists together, thumbs tucked, and bowing repeatedly while walking. It's used for greeting high nobles, or the emperor himself, if you're ever so unlucky. Your shoulders burn, your palms sweat, your brain melts. And yet, there's a rhythm to it, a kind of strange, exhausting grace. You start to get the hang of it, until your shoe slips on a wet tile and you go sliding like a fish. Laughter erupts. Big mistake. The room goes quiet. The instructor turns. "Again," he says coldly. "From the beginning." Everyone groans inwardly, some openly. You're pretty sure someone mouths your name in fury. Congratulations, you're already popular. Here's a quirky detail you didn't expect. Some of these instructors are former opera performers. That's why their movements are so dramatic. One of them corrects your pose by physically lifting your elbow like it's the corner of a silk fan. "More grace," he mutters. "Less cow." Noted. By sunset, the bell rings again. Training is over. You're drenched in sweat and shame. You shuffle back to the dormitory, dragging your feet, until you remember dragging feet is also against the rules. So you lift them, barely. Inside the dorm, someone has lit the oil lamp early. The flame flickers across a poster of Confucian virtues hung crooked on the far wall. Underneath it, someone's scratched a message in charcoal. The walls have ears. You believe it. One of the senior boys limps over to you. He squints. You're the one who slipped? You nod, bracing for a punchline. He just smirks. Happens to all of us. First week. You exhale. Don't mess up tomorrow, he adds casually, or you'll be assigned to latrine duty. Then he walks away. You don't sleep again. Not really. Your knees pulse. Your arms twitch. You keep replaying your slip in your head. At one point, you dream about bowing into a pit of snakes. You wake up with a start. Your bunkmate has stolen your blanket. You let him keep it. The next day, the training resumes. This time, you try harder. You land your bows. You keep your hands straight. You don't slip. You still get scolded for blinking too fast. A passing eunuch watches silently from the shadows. His eyes linger on you for a moment too long. That can mean anything. A compliment, a warning, or a random itch. You'll never know. By day 4, your back is stronger. Your knees have gone from screaming to just whimpering. You've memorized which hand goes over, which when bowing. You've stopped hoping for a smile or good job. There is no good job. There is only not punished. And yet, something weird is happening. You're adapting. It's not pride, exactly. It's more like grim determination. Because here in the Forbidden City, learning to bow isn't about respect. It's about survival. Section 3. It's your 6th day, when someone finally trusts you with an actual task. Not sweeping. Not scrubbing a wall that will only get re-scrubbed by someone else. This time, you are told, very seriously and without any hint of sarcasm, that you're going to dust the dragon throne. Yep, that one. You gulp down the lump in your throat, trying not to picture all the ways you might die in the next 30 minutes. They say the Hall of Supreme Harmony is the most sacred place in the entire Forbidden City. You believe it. As you're led across the marble steps, flanked by ornate balustrades carved with dragons, you realize this is not a place for mortals. This is where emperors become legends, where ceremonies unfold with choreographed precision, where you can disappear into history for sneezing in the wrong direction. As the doors creak open, your breath catches. The air inside is thick, like time itself is hanging there, waiting. It smells of varnish, dust, and incense, and maybe a little judgment. And there it is, the throne. It rises from the platform like a golden beast, jaws made of lacquered curls, and dragons with eyes that almost seem wet. It's more sculpture than furniture. Its arms shaped like myth. Its cushions stiff with embroidered clouds. You, a nobody with fraying sleeves, are going to clean it. Fun fact, the throne isn't made of solid gold. It's mostly wood, phoenix wood, if you believe the rumors, layered with gold leaf and topped with symbolism. Dragons, phoenixes, 5-clawed motifs. Every line declares authority. Historians still debate whether the throne's original design was based on older Ming models, or if Qing emperors demanded more elaborate ornamentation to compensate for their Manchu origins. You take a step forward. A eunuch glances at you, then back at the throne. "No looking," he hisses. "Right. You're not allowed to look directly at the throne while cleaning it. Eye contact with an empty chair. Sounds about right?" He places a small cloth in your palm. It's not even special, just a square of soft silk dampened slightly with rose water. You want to ask, why rose water? But decide to keep your eyeballs in their sockets. You approach slowly. No squeaking, no heavy breathing, just gentle steps on ancient wood. You lower your head and begin. And let me tell you, dusting something that ornate without looking at it? It's a circus trick. Every swipe of the cloth is a blind gamble. You brush over delicate dragons carved into the backrest, each one with a face full of judgment. You gently wipe the armrest, fingers trembling, because, oops, one wrong move, and you might knock off a pearl inlay. And that would be the end of you, literally. "Use 2 fingers only," the eunuch says from behind. Firm, but respectful. You have no idea how to make your fingers respectful. But okay. The throne vibrates with history. Not literally, but emotionally? Yes. You can feel centuries pressing down on you. You imagine the emperors who sat here. Kangxi, Yongzheng, Qianlong. You wonder how many servants like you once knelt here, trembling with the same fear, dreaming of warmth and rice, and not dying from dusting-related accidents. At one point, your cloth catches slightly on a carved flame. You freeze. The eunuch inhales sharply. You back away slowly, heart pounding, cloth still clutched in your hand like it might protect you. "You're done," he says flatly. You bow, kneel, back away 3 steps, kneel again, and then leave, still facing the throne. You resist the urge to look one last time. Outside, the cold air hits your face like a splash of water. You made it. Barely. You walk back to the servant quarters in a daze, every joint in your body humming from tension. Someone sees your empty hands and asks, "First throne?" You nod. They just pat your shoulder and say, "Could have been worse. Could have been lacquer repair." Apparently that's a real thing. Repairing the black and gold finish on antique imperial furniture. One wrong stroke, and boom, goodbye hands. Later that night, you lie in bed, staring at the ceiling again. But this time, your mind isn't racing with dread. You feel something else. Not pride exactly, but a strange, surreal sense of proximity. You were that close to the seat of power, the very heart of the empire. You didn't speak. You didn't move. But you existed there for 5 whole minutes. That's something, right? Then the guy next to you sneezes on your blanket and mutters, "Hope you're not cursed now." Ah, right. The rumor. Some servants believe the throne is protected by spirits of former emperors. If you clean it without pure intentions, your soul gets trapped in the gold filigree. Others say that if you accidentally see your reflection in the polished arms, it's a sign you'll never leave the palace. You pretend not to think about either. But when you dream that night, you're back in the hall, wiping dust that never ends, under the watchful gaze of a golden dragon that finally blinks. Section 4. You're starting to figure out the rhythm now. Not life, exactly, just the rhythm. You wake before anything chirps. You fold your blanket with military precision. You queue outside for a splash of icy water to the face and one scoop of rice gruel that has the consistency of wet chalk. And then you hustle, because the day officially starts before the sun does. You might think the Forbidden City, with all its golden roofs and pristine courtyards, would offer at least a few warm comforts. Nope. Welcome to your first full week of morning assignments, which, surprise, begin in the dark and end in exhaustion. Your current duty: tending to the morning cleaning of the southern corridor near the Gate of Supreme Harmony. It's an area that exists primarily for officials to march across in ritual silence. And you? You get to make sure the sacred cobblestones are absolutely spotless. Fun fringe fact: the cobblestones are laid out in a specific 9x9 grid pattern, 9 being the imperial number, obviously. There are even drainage systems underneath that are so old and twisty that some believe they're haunted by former ministers who overstayed their welcome. Historians still argue whether this underground labyrinth was truly used as a panic escape route or just an elaborate sewage maze. But either way, you're up before dawn, hauling buckets of water that freeze solid if left sitting for more than 10 minutes. There are no gloves. Gloves are for people who might actually matter if they lose a finger. Your hands crack open by day 3. You smear goose fat into the splits when no one's looking. An older boy tells you that's what his father used during winters back in Shanxi. You nod, file it under life hacks that shouldn't involve poultry, and keep scrubbing. The ground is unforgiving. You're on your knees, not because it's symbolic, but because it's practical. Standing would make you slower, and slower means noticed. And being noticed, as you've already gathered, is rarely a good thing. At some point, a eunuch glides past in gold-trimmed robes. He doesn't even glance at you, but you instinctively bow anyway. Forehead just above the ground, muscles tensing as you brace for impact. None comes. That's almost worse. Sunlight finally creeps into the corridors. Golden beams stretch across the stone like lazy dragons, warming absolutely nothing. Your breath still clouds the air. You wring out your cloth and press forward. The city begins to wake behind you. Wooden doors creak open. Scrolls are unrolled. And somewhere, an imperial rooster crows like it owns the place. Because it kind of does. And here's something you learn very quickly. Hierarchy is not just a rumor in this place. It's a physics law. The closer you are to the emperor, the more people bow to you. The farther down you are, the more invisible you become. And you? You're still somewhere beneath teapot. Ranks among servants are absurdly precise. There are cloth-handling boys, firewood managers, button pinchers. Yes, really. And you? You're what they call a runner, a sort of cross between errand boy and furniture shadow. Your job is to stay out of sight while being everywhere at once, and to never, never speak unless explicitly asked. You learn quickly the posture is everything. One shoulder too high, you look arrogant. Feet too wide apart, you look rebellious. Back too straight, you're mocking nobility. Too slouched, you're lazy. So now you walk around like a cautious willow branch, upright, slightly deferential, and always ready to bend with the wind. Also, don't smile. Smiling reads as sarcasm. One morning, you're assigned to accompany a laundry procession. Not to do laundry, mind you, just to carry an empty basket behind a eunuch who's carrying a full one. It's symbolic. Don't ask. As you pass through the western side corridor, you spot a strange sight. Two eunuchs arguing, quietly but fiercely, over a robe. Not just any robe, a golden silk one with clouds, bats, and dragon claws, the kind only a high-ranking prince would wear. "Too much embroidery on the sleeve," one hisses. "Not enough phoenix feathers," the other insists. You blink, then walk faster. Historians sometimes joke that palace disputes were often settled over thread count. You now believe that. Back at the dormitory that evening, someone finally breaks the silence with a joke. One of the boys mutters, "I think my fingers have become sentient. One of them refused to grab the bucket." You laugh, quietly. But it's real. Someone else nods. "I named my frostbite. This one's Ming. That one's Ching." There's a beat of shared, exhausted giggling. No one tells you to shut up. Later, as the fire is lit in the little iron stove, only for 1 hour by strict order, you feel a rare sense of not exactly, but camaraderie, a shared grimace, a whisper of humanity in a city built to crush it. Still, the next morning, the bell rings early. Your knees ache, your back protests, but you rise anyway. You know the drill, because this is how you survive the Forbidden City. Not with strength, not with smarts, but with rhythm. You become part of the routine, a moving piece in a centuries-old clock. And maybe, just maybe, that clock won't notice you long enough to let you live. Section 5. Your braid is finally long enough to tie properly, which is good, because today they inspect your queue. Yes, your hair braid. In the Forbidden City, everything about you is ranked, measured, and judged. And your queue, that thick plait hanging from the back of your shaved skull, is no exception. You didn't think hair could be political? Oh, sweet summer servant. The queue is required under Qing rule. Every male, servant or not, wears it. The front of your head is shaved clean, the rest grown long and braided down the back. It's a symbol of submission to the Manchu dynasty. Refusing it? Treason. Cutting it? Treason. Having it too messy? Just stupid. So today, as you stand in line with 40 other boys, someone in a jade-trimmed robe walks by, tugging braids like tassels on a curtain. If your queue isn't oiled, centered, or braided tight enough, they let you know, with a slap or a string of shameful nicknames like pigtail or fool's rope. You hold your breath. Tug. Yours holds. The inspector moves on. You exhale through your nose like someone who just avoided a snake bite. The boy behind you isn't so lucky. His braid slips to one side under the inspector's hand, and he's promptly sent back to the dormitory to have it redone. That means he misses morning rations. That means you win the unofficial game of least humiliated servant today. Small victories. You'd think hair wouldn't be such a big deal here, but the Forbidden City is built on appearances. From the emperor's ceremonial robes with embroidered dragons clutching flaming pearls, to the layout of the palace grounds designed in perfect symmetry, every detail is loaded with meaning. You are expected to reflect that, even if you're just mopping floors. Historians still debate whether the intense grooming rituals for servants were strictly enforced throughout all Qing reigns, or whether they peaked during certain paranoid periods. But you don't need a historian to tell you what's obvious. Neat hair means obedience. Wild hair means rebellion. There is no in-between. And grooming goes beyond hair. There are rules for how you walk, never faster than a noble. How you bow, we covered that pain. And even how you breathe around higher-ups. No wheezing, no sighing, and certainly no yawning. That last one can be interpreted as boredom with the empire. You've seen a boy get pulled aside for yawning near the West Corridor. He wasn't punished immediately. He just disappeared the next day. The barracks have their own silent rules, too. You don't ask about someone's past. You don't stare at scars. You don't share food unless it's offered twice. The second offering is the real one. The first is just a formality. One evening, a boy named Jun offers you a sweet potato. You hesitate. "Second time," he says. You take it. You've never tasted anything so sugary. It's roasted, slightly charred on one side, and warm enough to make your cold hands steam. You nod in thanks, not sure what else to say. He shrugs. "My cousin works in the kitchens," he mutters. "Sometimes there are extras." You don't ask for more details. You're learning. Jun becomes your shadow over the next few weeks. He's taller than you, wiry, with the gait of someone who could vanish into a corridor and reappear on the roof. You suspect he knows a lot more than he says. He teaches you to keep your braid stiff by rubbing it with old tea leaves. He shows you how to fake a bow that looks deep but doesn't strain your spine. He even shares a tip for staying warm in bed. Crumple old paper into your sleeves. "Feels like fire, but doesn't burn," he says with a grin. You're suspicious until it actually works. One morning, June isn't at roll call. You glance around. No one else looks alarmed. "He's probably on kitchen shift," someone mumbles. But he's not. You won't see him again for another 11 days. When he does return, his braid is shorter. His eyes won't meet yours. You don't ask. You just pass him half a boiled yam one evening. He doesn't say thank you, but he eats every bite. That's friendship here. Your own braid now falls just past your shoulder blades. You're careful with it. You comb it before bed, using a carved wooden fork someone discarded near the carp pond. You oil it with a drop of leftover lamp grease. Not ideal, but it gives it shine. And you've started to notice something. The longer your queue gets, the more people expect from you. A eunuch passes one morning, squints at your braid, and says, "You're due for an indoor posting soon." You don't react. You've learned that reacting to good news is often the quickest way to ruin it. That night, you whisper to June, "What's indoor posting?" He says nothing for a while, then rolls over. Means less wind, more watching. Cryptic, but helpful. And in a place like this, where a crooked braid can send you into hunger and an invisible rule can end your life, you learn to appreciate cryptic. You tug your braid gently before sleep, fingers brushing the soft, clean rope of hair you've grown under pressure. It's not a decoration. It's not a statement. It's a leash. But for now, it's a leash you've learned to live with. Section 6. You were promised a room, a place to sleep, a corner to call your own. What you got was a bunk. Technically, it's a shared dormitory enclosure with rotating cots. But that's just fancy palace speak for 10 people, 1 oil lamp, and enough body heat to melt frost off the walls. Barely. Welcome to your living quarters. You shuffle into the barracks after a 16-hour shift that involved holding a lantern perfectly level while a high official dictated a letter for 3 hours. Your arms still tremble. You drop onto your cot, a wooden plank stacked over another plank, and immediately bump knees with the boy below you. Careful, he grunts. Sorry. You arrange your single blanket, made from rough hemp, dyed an ambitious brownish gray. No pillow, just a sack of millet husks. If you get lucky, no one's borrowed it while you were out. There are no curtains, no privacy. The room smells like boiled cabbage, wet straw, and adolescent stress. You'd laugh if your face didn't hurt. You glance around. Most boys are asleep, curled in fetal positions like question marks. A few are muttering in dreams. One is snoring, like he's inhaling half the empire. You push your shoes under the cot and pray they're still there in the morning. Then you flatten your back and stare at the ceiling. There's a spider there. You name him Sun Wukong. He doesn't seem bothered by your presence. The thing is, living quarters for low-level servants are not what you'd call comfortable. They're tucked into forgotten corners of the palace, usually near a kitchen or behind a bathhouse, where the steam leaks into the walls and grows fuzzy mold in the corners. No one says anything. If you're caught complaining, you might get reassigned to courtyard snow duty, which, you may recall, is just unpaid suffering with a broom. Historians still argue whether the Forbidden City's servant quarters were deliberately miserable to keep the workers humble, or simply neglected because no one important ever set foot inside them. Judging by the state of your latrine, definitely door number 2, there is one window in your dorm. It's the size of a teacup saucer and frosted over 80% of the time. Sometimes you see a flash of red silk or hear a gong echo through it. But mostly, it's a portal to grayness. One quirky detail. The brick beds you sleep on are heated in winter by burning wood in channels beneath them. Kang beds, they're called. Sounds luxurious, right? Except the wood ration barely lasts past midnight. So yes, your spine's toasty at 10 p.m., but by 3 a.m., you're hugging your own breath for warmth. Occasionally, you're assigned to night watch, a task that involves wandering the halls with a paper lantern, making sure no one steals, speaks, or dies in their sleep. You're not told what to do if someone does die. Just report it, which seems optimistic. One night, during your first watch, you find an older boy sleepwalking. He's mumbling names you don't recognize. You gently guide him back to his cot. He never mentions it again. The next day, someone sneaks in half a turnip, wrapped in cloth, and splits it 4 ways. You get a bite. It's bitter, but tastes like friendship. In a palace as grand as this one, you'd think you'd get porcelain bowls, silken sheets, and foot massages from cloud-walking immortals. But no, you get a metal basin, a shared towel, yes, shared, and 1 bar of soap per hall, not per person. You guard your socks like they are imperial jade. And yet, something happens over time. The quarters become familiar, not cozy, but consistent. You know which floorboard squeaks when stepped on with your right heel. You know whose breath stinks in the morning and who sings in their sleep. You know which spider webs to avoid and which might actually catch the mosquitoes. You build routines. You learn to wash your socks in the corner bucket during late-night free minutes. You hang them on a hidden nail behind your bunk. You memorize the guard's schedule so you can smuggle in a boiled egg June once bartered from a kitchen boy. You even carve a small symbol into the wooden beam above your cot, a circle inside a square. No one asks what it means. No one has to. It's your mark. Proof you're here. Surviving. Every now and then, the senior eunuchs come to inspect the quarters. They sniff the air like suspicious cats, flick the blankets for hidden contraband, like biscuits or loose coins, and occasionally confiscate something as trivial as a fan, too luxurious for your rank. You once lost a polished pebble you'd been carrying from your village. You didn't cry, but that night, you didn't speak either. There are rules for everything here. You don't leave your car after the second bell. You don't hoard food. You don't scribble on walls. That last one is broken frequently, usually in clever ways. Your favorite? The moon doesn't shine on us. Scrawled in charcoal beneath a cot post, you nod every time you see it. But sometimes, the moon does shine through that tiny window. On those nights, you lie perfectly still and listen to the sounds of the palace. Wind over roof tiles, the faint chime of bells. Somewhere, a concubine laughs, a sound like falling leaves. And for a moment, the forbidden city softens. It becomes not a prison, but a world. A living, breathing organism with chambers for hearts, corridors for lungs, and thousands of tiny veins, you among them. It doesn't love you. It doesn't even know you. But you're here. And for now, that's enough. Section 7. The first time you meet a eunuch up close, you don't realize it's happening. You're scrubbing a wooden walkway with a straw brush, cursing a mysterious stain that refuses to budge, when you hear the faintest whisper of silk behind you. You freeze. Why are you attacking that plank like it insulted your ancestors? The voice is soft, high, and oddly amused. You glance up, and there he is. Robes immaculate, eyebrows sharp enough to slice ginger, holding a feather duster like it's a scepter. He looks down at you like you're an especially perplexing fungus. Just trying to clean, master. You stammer. He smirks. Then try not to drown the walkway. The ministers hate soggy floors. And with that, he glides off like a ghost in embroidered shoes, disappearing into a hallway lined with golden cloud patterns. You remain on your knees, unsure whether you've been complimented, insulted, or marked for death. Probably all three. Eunuchs rule your world. They are not just palace servants. They are the inner court's power brokers, gatekeepers, whisperers, record keepers, and disciplinarians. Some are kind, some are cruel. Most are unreadable. You learn very quickly that serving them is just as important as serving the emperor. Possibly more, since they're the ones actually watching you. Here's the twisted math of it. In the Forbidden City, eunuchs don't just survive the system, They are the system. You're told to refer to them all as master, regardless of age. Some are barely older than you. Some are so ancient they creak when they bow. But all of them know more than you do. About everything. Always. One fringe detail you overhear. A senior eunuch named Gao insists on having his own chamber pot polished with vinegar twice a day. His assistants call it the vinegar hour. You think it's a joke until you see someone carrying the pot like it's imperial treasure. Historians still argue whether eunuchs wielded true independent power or were merely puppets of concubines and ministers. Judging by how terrified everyone seems when they walk by, you're leaning toward very real power. Thank you very much. One afternoon, you're summoned to carry scrolls to the Bureau of Imperial Music. You're not even sure what that is. But you nod and accept the lacquered bundle like it's the mandate of heaven. The eunuch who gives it to you is named Lin. He's middle-aged, with a calm, unreadable face and a voice like a flute being played indoors. "Don't drop them," he says, not unkindly, "or I'll break your fingers." You nod. "Yes, master." As you walk beside him through the narrow halls, he talks, casually, almost like a friend might. "Where are you from?" "Shanxi," you answer, surprised. "Ah, I knew a boy from Shanxi. Good with ink, terrible with lies." He doesn't explain what happened to that boy. You don't ask. You make it to the bureau, without incident. You hand off the scrolls. Lin nods once and leaves. You exhale so hard you nearly faint. Back in the barracks, you ask June if he's ever worked with eunuchs. "All the time," he says, cracking a sunflower seed with his teeth. "You just have to figure out which ones want obedience and which ones want a little entertainment." You blink. "Entertainment?" He shrugs. "Not that kind. Just cleverness, jokes, flattery. It's like feeding fish. Some want silence, some want sugar." That night, you dream of being dragged into the inner chambers and asked to recite poetry to a eunuch in a golden robe. You wake up, sweating. Eventually, you're assigned to assist a lower-ranking eunuch named Shui. He's old, slow-moving, and half-blind in one eye. But he has the calm of someone who's seen the palace eat hundreds of boys and just doesn't care anymore. He teaches you how to fold imperial documents. Not roll, fold. There are 9 permitted creases, each one symbolic. Fold wrong, and the document becomes unreadable to someone who takes symbolism seriously, which is everyone. Shu watches your hands. "Too tight," he mutters. "Let the paper breathe. If it tears, you tear with it." "Understood, master." He glances at your braid. "Tight cue. You keep it oiled?" "Yes, master." He nods. "That's good. Makes the back of your head easier to grab if you run." Comforting. You fold scrolls for 3 hours. By the end, your fingers feel like rubber. But Shui pats your hand once before sending you away. You realize you kind of like him. Days blur. You learn which eunuchs gossip and which ones glare. You learn that some play music in private chambers, strumming old zithers while mouthing lyrics no one else can hear. Others write tiny poems on scraps of silk, then burn them immediately. June claims to have seen one levitating once. You decide he's either joking or losing it. And every now and then, one of them looks at you. Not with pity, not with scorn, but with recognition. A flicker of shared understanding. You're both trapped, just at different altitudes. Still, never forget this rule. They are your bosses, tormentors, protectors, sometimes all three, but never your equals. You lie awake some nights, wondering what they traded for that silk robe and tiny room, wondering what choices led them here, wondering if they wonder the same about you. The palace doesn't answer. It never does. But the wind rattles the eaves like 1,000 tiny footsteps. And somewhere, a eunuch probably hears it and writes it down. Section 8. The kitchen smells like heaven. If heaven were boiled, stewed, steamed, and plated with obsessive precision. You weren't supposed to be here. You were just passing through, carrying a bundle of washed hand towels to the hall of celestial purity, when a eunuch waved you inside and barked, "You, runner boy, we're short-handed for lunch duty." And suddenly, you're swept into a storm of steam, shouting and chopping. Welcome to the inner court kitchens. It's not just food. It's ritual, orchestrated chaos. Meals for the emperor and his court aren't prepared. They're composed, like symphonies in duck fat and glutinous rice. You're pretty sure someone cried while dicing ginger. You don't ask. You're given one job: peel lotus seeds. That's it. One seed at a time, removing the bitter green core inside without splitting the flesh. It sounds simple. It's not. After the first dozen, your fingernails ache. By the 50th, you've gone slightly cross-eyed. You drop one. It rolls under a table. You dive after it like it's a gold nugget. Someone chuckles above you. "Careful," says a soft voice. "If you drop a dumpling later, the Grand Chamberlain will make you eat it off the floor." You sit up and blink. A girl stands there, no older than you, in a faded robe with flower dust on her cheek. She's holding a tray of what looks like candied chrysanthemum petals. "Do you work here?" you ask, stunned. "I live here," she replies with a smirk. She disappears behind a curtain before you can ask her name. So, that was new. The head cook, known only as Granny Ping, strides through the kitchen like a general in a war zone. She's terrifying. Her voice could melt wax. She oversees every station, from soup stewing to dumpling folding. You once saw her reject a batch of mooncakes because the filling smelled insecure. She walks past you now, eyes squinting. "Lotus seeds?" she snaps. "Yes, master. They better not taste like regret." Right. You return to your work. Historians still argue whether the Qing imperial kitchens had official recipe books, or if most dishes were handed down orally. Either way, everything is a performance. Even the garnish must have meaning. Carrot flowers symbolize longevity. Duck tongues represent eloquence. Even the shape of a rice cake can imply good harvest, or accidentally, a funeral. Every plate is triple-checked before it leaves the kitchen. Every bowl has to be heated to the perfect temperature. Every chopstick is hand-wiped by someone whose entire job is chopstick wiping. And here's the kicker. Most of the food will never be eaten. It's not uncommon for the emperor to take one bite, nod vaguely, and move on. The rest? Discarded. Sometimes sent to high officials, rarely to lower servants. Usually just wasted. You try not to think about that as your stomach growls. Eventually, you're drafted into lunch delivery. This is a whole other ordeal. You're given a lacquered tray stacked with covered bowls, each tied with red ribbon. You're warned, don't tilt, don't peek, don't smell. You nod, trembling slightly, and are told to follow another boy named Wei, who carries an identical tray with far more confidence. Just walk like you're not scared, he whispers. You try. You walk through a long corridor, past a line of guards in crimson uniforms. The air gets colder, quieter, sacred. At the far end is the hall of mental cultivation. You don't go inside. No one does, except the most trusted eunuchs. Instead, you kneel at the threshold. Someone opens the doors from within. A pair of hands takes the tray. You don't look up. You bow. You breathe. You back away. That's it. You've now helped deliver food to the Son of Heaven. No applause, no reward. Just another bruise on your knees and a reminder that perfection is expected, even when no one sees it. Back at the kitchen, Granny Ping nods once. Didn't spill. Good. High praise. You're offered a leftover dumpling that someone accidentally made with one too many pleats. You eat it in 2 bites. It tastes like warmth and salt, and maybe a whisper of forgiveness. Later that week, you return to the kitchens for another rotation. You spot the girl again. She's slicing radish into the shape of cranes. What's your name? You ask. She glances around. May. Then she slides the plate toward you. One of the cranes has a missing wing. Here, that one's for you. You almost don't eat it. It looks too beautiful. Almost. That night, you try to describe the taste to June, who just smirks. Careful, he says. Kitchen girls are more dangerous than palace intrigue. You raise an eyebrow. They smell like soup, he adds dramatically. It's distracting. But he's not entirely joking. Friendships, even the hint of them, are risky in a place built on surveillance and hierarchy. You know that. Still, the crane was delicious. You go to sleep with a warm belly and slightly warmer thoughts. You're not sure what's more surprising, that you helped feed the emperor, or that someone fed you for once. Section 9. The broom is older than you are, probably older than your parents. It's made of stiff millet stalks, bound with what feels like eternal twine, and it squeaks when it moves. The sound it makes isn't pleasant. It's the shrill scrape of, you missed a spot. Today, you're assigned to sweep the Hall of Supreme Harmony. Yes, that hall. Again. But this time, you're not dusting a throne. No. This time, you're sweeping a floor so sacred, you're not even allowed to look directly at it for too long, which makes cleaning it a bit of a challenge. The hall itself towers above you, like a mountain of power. Every time you pass beneath its curved eaves, you feel smaller. Your breath slows. Your hands sweat, even when it's below freezing. It's not just size. It's symbolism. This is the place where emperors were enthroned, where envoys from foreign lands bowed until their heads touched the marble, where rituals older than your bloodline were performed with terrifying regularity. And today, it's your job to sweep it. Your broom wheezes across the stone, which is polished so smooth it reflects light like still water. You move slowly, deliberately, in straight lines, never circling, never retracing your steps. Circles are bad luck here. Everything must move forward, like the empire itself. There are rules to this, of course. You're part of a 4-person team. One sweeps, one collects debris, one stands guard to alert you of approaching officials, and one apologizes in advance. You've been assigned the apology role before. It's not fun. Today, you're the sweeper. You lower your gaze and begin. Fun fact: the Hall of Supreme Harmony has no nails in its wooden frame. The entire structure is held together by interlocking joints, fitted so precisely that not even time has broken them apart. Historians still argue whether this was purely architectural genius, or also an act of symbolic defiance. No iron in the throne room, only harmony. Whatever the reason, the floor under your bare feet is freezing in the early light. You tiptoe across it, broom in hand, trying not to disturb the silence. Even your heartbeat feels too loud here. You pass a line of columns, massive red trunks lacquered to gleam like blood, each one carved with coiling dragons, each watching you with those smug little eyes. You wonder if anyone's ever cleaned them. Probably. Probably someone taller than you, or someone with very long arms and very little survival instinct. The sweeping itself isn't hard. What's hard is doing it without breaking a single invisible rule. Don't sweep toward the throne. It's seen as pushing dirt at the emperor. Don't sweep away from the throne either. That's considered sweeping his blessings out of the hall. Instead, you sweep sideways. Always sideways. Like an awkward crab with no sense of direction and a terror of authority. You're halfway through when a eunuch enters from the side corridor. You freeze mid-sweep. He doesn't look at you, doesn't speak, just walks across the room in deliberate steps, holding a scroll with both hands like it's a newborn. His shadow glides across the throne's platform. Then he vanishes behind a silk curtain. You exhale. You didn't realize you were holding your breath. June once told you a story about a boy who coughed during a sweeping shift. Just one cough. He was reassigned to manure detail the next day. Permanent reassignment. June called it the brown exile. You focus harder. Eventually, the sun creeps higher. Light streams through the high windows in long, diagonal beams that catch the dust you've missed. Tiny, golden flecks dancing in the air, mocking your efforts. You swipe at them uselessly. They settle back like glitter on lacquer. The boy on bucket duty dumps your collection into a cloth bag. Bits of bird feather, dried leaves, and something that looks suspiciously like a fingernail. Ooh. Then he bows, takes the bag, and leaves. You finish your last pass across the stones, double-checking that your footprint trail is straight and symmetrical. It's a weird skill, but you're getting good at it. Walking invisibly, cleaning like you don't exist. Outside, the courtyard glows under the late morning sun. You step into it like a diver surfacing after a long swim. The cold air hits you, but it's a lively kind of cold. Sharp. Awake. You sit on the edge of a stone planter and flex your fingers. They're stiff, pink, and permanently pruny. You're beginning to suspect you're aging 5 times faster inside this palace. An older boy sits beside you without asking. You recognize him from laundry duty. "Did you sweep the hall?" he asks. You nod. He raises his eyebrows. "And survived?" You smile. He reaches into his sleeve and pulls out a chunk of dried pear. He offers you half. You don't say a word. Just take it. Sometimes kindness is silent, like sweeping. That night, back in the dorm, June tosses a threadbare blanket at you. "For your feet," he mumbles. "So you don't squeak when you walk like a haunted shoe." You laugh into your sleeve. He grins. Then the room goes quiet again. You lie down and let your thoughts drift back to that floor. That enormous, quiet, humming floor where kings once walked and servants once disappeared. You were there today. Just a broom. Just a boy. Just a sideways crab in the Empire's most sacred hall. But still, you were there. Section 10. You've scrubbed tiles, carried scrolls, delivered soup without spilling a drop. But nothing, absolutely nothing, compares to the nightmare of imperial laundry duty. You think you've done laundry before? Back in your village, you used to help your mother rinse clothes in the river, smack them against rocks, hang them from a mulberry branch. But this is laundry by decree. Laundry for gods. Laundry where if you crease a sleeve wrong, someone somewhere gets demoted or mysteriously never seen again. The imperial laundry is a walled-off section of the palace grounds, nestled between a fish pond and a corridor of plum trees you're never allowed to walk through. You enter it under strict escort, clutching a bucket of water and your soul. The first thing that hits you is the steam. Thick, suffocating. It rolls off stone basins and copper kettles, clinging to your skin like hot breath. Everywhere you look, young servants, dozens of them, are hunched over benches, pounding, scrubbing, folding. They move like bees in a hive, coordinated and focused, only without the joy of honey. You're handed a robe. No, not a robe. The robe. Imperial silk, pale blue with gold thread embroidery. 2 dragons curl around a crimson orb on the back. Just holding it feels like holding a cloud spun from pure anxiety. "Wash only the hem," someone whispers, "and only with orchid water." You stare. "What's orchid water?" The boy stares back. "Water. With orchids." "Right." You dip the hem into the basin. It shimmers like a dream. The fabric is so fine, it ripples at the slightest touch. You dab it gently with the sponge provided. You feel like a surgeon working on a royal eyelash. Don't scrub. Don't twist. Don't wrinkle. Someone across the courtyard screams. Everyone stops. A eunuch storms in, eyes burning, holding what looks like a pinkish robe. "Who?" he hisses, waving it like a flag of shame. "Used red dye on the Empress Dowager's nightgown." The room goes still. You pray to every god, ancestor, and garden rock that it wasn't you. Spoiler, it wasn't. But the boy responsible is dragged out within seconds. You hear no more of him. You do, however, inherit his stool. It's still warm. June once told you that the laundry chambers were worse than the stables. You didn't believe him. Now you do. Because at least a horse won't blame you if your rinsing technique offends Confucius. Historians still argue whether palace laundry was managed entirely by eunuchs, or if specialized servant castes existed just for fabric care. Judging by the army of frantic children scrubbing collars, it's probably both. Your second robe is a concubine's shawl. It smells like jimen and heartbreak. The label on the silk says, "Third-ranked Lady Zhou." You don't know her, but her perfume lingers, as does a faint reddish blotch that might be lipstick or blood. You don't ask. Quirky detail? The imperial family changes clothes multiple times a day. Morning wear, ceremonial wear, evening robes, informal lounging garments, and seasonal silks. And every single one gets washed by you. You scrub until your fingers go white and soft. You can't feel the wrinkles in your palms anymore. Your arms tremble. You almost drop a drying rack. A eunuch sees it teeter. He doesn't say anything, just raises an eyebrow. That's worse. You learn fast that the laundry isn't just about cleanliness. It's about reverence. Folding is a sacred act. Sleeves must be aligned like crane wings. Collars must sit like mountain ridges. Any deviation is, essentially, treason by textile. You spend hours mastering the temple fold, the emperor's bathrobe fan fold, and something called the double cloud twist, which honestly sounds like a martial arts move, but is just how they like their undergarments stored. At lunch, you get half a bowl of rice with boiled radish. You chew in silence, hands still pruned and reeking of flower water. The boy next to you blows on his food and mutters, "I saw someone wipe a stain with their sleeve once. He's probably buried under the incense altar now." No one laughs. At one point in the afternoon, a burst of wind rips through the drying lines. Silk dances in the air like 1,000 ghosts. Everyone dives to grab garments mid-flight, like chasing butterflies with stakes in your life. You catch a pink scarf with your face. Victory. By sunset, your muscles feel like wet cloth themselves. You can barely lift your arms, let alone fold anything else. But there's one last task. You're handed a pair of gold-trimmed slippers, imperial, delicate, smelling faintly of crushed peonies and foot powder. "Brush the soles," says the eunuch. "With rabbit hair." He holds up a tiny brush, no bigger than a paint tool. You kneel, you brush. The slippers gleam under the lantern light. They're the quietest shoes you've ever touched, meant to pad across marble like whispers. You picture the emperor wearing them. Then you picture accidentally leaving a hair behind and him slipping on it. You brush more carefully. That night, back in your cot, your arms twitch every time you close your eyes. You dream of drowning in sudsy orchid water while dragons scold you for smudging embroidery. In the silence of the dorm, June tosses you a cloth packet. "What's this?" "You survived your first laundry rotation," he says. "You get a towel." You unfold it. It's clean, soft. You almost cry. Because in this place, even a towel feels like a promotion. Section 11. You're sweeping out a corridor near the Pavilion of Literary Profundity. Yes, that's its actual name. When it happens, the air shifts. The eunuchs stop moving. Even the birds seem to hold their breath. Then the bells chime, low, clear, ominous. It's not like the morning work bell, or the mid-meal chime. This one sounds different, heavier, like it's made of thunder and rules. You blink. The boy next to you drops his broom. And then, through the archway, he arrives. The Emperor. You don't see him at first, not fully. Just a wave of movement. Silk rippling like water. Guards parting like shadows. Eunuchs walking backward in front of him, hands folded. A parasol, yellow and impossibly ornate, floating just above the motion. And somewhere beneath it, a glimpse, just a glimpse, of him. A figure in imperial yellow, head held impossibly high. Robes so embroidered they glint like sunlight on still water. A hat with golden finials, hands folded in front, like he's holding the pulse of the empire. And you? You drop. Face down, body flat, forehead to the stone, palms stretched forward like an offering. You don't breathe. You don't blink. You barely think. This isn't a man. This is the Son of Heaven. You are dirt beneath his divine feet. Or at least, that's the idea. And yet, some traitorous part of you is very aware of everything. The faint scent of sandalwood in the air, the tension in your spine, the cold of the stone against your lips. You wonder, just for a second, what he really looks like. If he's young, old, smiling, angry, or maybe just tired. But you don't look. You'd rather keep your head. This entire performance, this paralyzing moment of worship, is called the kowtow protocol. You've practiced it, of course. But practice never feels like this. Historians still debate whether even the highest-ranking ministers truly believed in the emperor's divinity, or just played along because, well, nobody wants their family erased from the records. The procession glides past. You don't dare lift your eyes, but you can hear it. The click of shoes, the rustle of brocade, the soft scuff of imperial weight on ancient stone. Time slows, and then, gone, like a gust of wind that smelled like power. Only after the final bell rings are you allowed to rise. Your limbs are numb. The boy beside you is still face down, muttering a prayer. Or maybe just trying not to cry. June once told you that seeing the emperor up close changes people, that even nobles stumble afterward. He's not human, June said. He's the empire in skin. You thought he was being dramatic. Now, you're not so sure. You go through the rest of your day in a fog. Tasks blur. Someone tells you to scrub a railing. You do. Someone else asks you to run a message to the northwest gate. You do. But your mind is still back there, in that corridor, face to the floor, heart pounding like a drum in the hall of clocks. And the weirdest part? You're not afraid. Not exactly. You're awed. It's terrifying how easy it is to believe the myth when you're inside the story. Later that evening, back in the dorm, someone whispers, "He came by today, right?" You nod. "Did you look?" "No." Someone else snorts. "Good. There was a boy 3 years ago who did. They found him sweeping the bathhouse steps for 6 months, with a toothbrush." You laugh, nervously. June leans in. "My cousin once saw his reflection in a bronze plate and swore he saw the emperor's face behind his own." You shiver. You don't sleep much that night. The memory plays again and again. The yellow robe, The parasol. That moment where the world held its breath. You wonder, was he watching? Did he notice anything? Does the emperor ever notice the ants scurrying at his feet? Probably not. But part of you hopes, maybe, just maybe. Section 12. Your fingers go stiff the moment you step outside. It's winter in the Forbidden City now, and the cold hits different here. It's not the cheerful, let's drink soup and cuddle kind of cold. No, this is the kind of cold that chews on your ears, laughs at your socks, and turns your breath into icicles that could probably slice a dumpling. Snow has blanketed the courtyards, muffling the usual chaos into eerie quiet. The roofs glow white against the gray sky, and the golden tiles glisten beneath a delicate sheet of frost, like the whole palace has been lacquered in frozen moonlight. It's beautiful. It's also a nightmare. You've been reassigned to snow-clearing duty. That means waking before the bells, slipping on shoes that are 2 rice cakes away from disintegrating, and shoveling the walkways so that very important people don't slip and bruise their royal dignity. Of course, there are no actual shovels, just wide bamboo brooms and flat wooden scrapers, which feel about as effective as sweeping a blizzard with a fan. You drag your broom across the flagstone path of eternal something, a name you've forgotten because your teeth are chattering too hard to care. Your breath fogs the air in front of you, only to instantly disappear. Your hands, wrapped in 2 layers of fabric and silent desperation, throb with every gust of wind. And yet, the snow must go. Not because anyone's going to congratulate you, but because if a concubine slips on a stair and bruises her ankle, you might be accused of imperial negligence. Yes, that's a thing. You glance across the courtyard and see June scraping ice off the marble railing with what looks like a soup spoon. He doesn't complain. He doesn't look up. He just scrapes, slowly, rhythmic, like a man polishing his own tombstone. You don't wave. He wouldn't wave back. It's too cold for hope. But you do nod, a kind of silent salute across the frost-bitten battlefield. Somewhere in the distance, a bell tolls. Not the ceremonial kind. This one signals the daily wood ration. You snap to attention. Firewood is rationed like silver here. If you're late, you get nothing. And let me tell you, a night without fire is not poetic. It's a slow descent into sockless despair. You join the stampede of servants clutching their allowance tokens. A eunuch stands by a brazier, ladling out split logs like blessings from a miserly god. You get 3 pieces, enough to warm your dorm for an hour if you huddle close and pretend to be small. One boy asks for an extra. He's ignored. Historians still debate how well the Forbidden City's heating systems worked. There were underground flues and kang beds, sure, but most of the warmth was reserved for the emperor's wing and the highest-ranked concubines. Servants like you? You're expected to rely on shared body heat and internal strength, whatever those are. You haul your wood back to the dormitory and feed it into the little stove in the center of the room. The flame catches slowly, flickering orange and hopeful. You all gather around it, kneeling like disciples at a holy shrine. The warmth is shocking. It bites first, then soothes. Jun rubs his hands and mutters, "I think one of my toes is gone. I'm naming the rest before they leave me." Someone else chuckles. Another boy holds up a dried plum and says, "To our noble sacrifice, may we one day be reborn as ministers' sons with heated floors." You toast to that with imaginary wine. But the peace doesn't last. A senior eunuch storms in, robes billowing like storm clouds. "Inspection!" he snaps. Everyone scatters. The room is cleared in 60 seconds flat. Fire? Out. Blankets? Folded. Bodies? Upright and kneeling, like good little ice sculptures. The eunuch eyes the room, sniffs the air, runs a finger along the windowsill. He pauses in front of you. You brace yourself. He lifts your hand, examines your nails. "They're clean?" He nods. "Efficient." Then leaves. You nearly collapse with relief. Back outside, the snow begins again. Light. Silent. Endless. You're sent to clear a path near the pavilion of cheerful longevity, which is hilarious, considering no one is cheerful, and the only longevity around here is frostbite. The path winds past a frozen pond where koi fish used to swim. You press your foot against the ice and peer down. Nothing moves. Just your own reflection, pale and breathless. Then, from across the water, you hear it. Music. Faint, fluttering, like a guzheng string, trembling in the cold. You glance toward the source and see a silk curtain drawn aside. A concubine, swathed in layers of pastel silk, stands at the window, plucking an instrument. Her face is calm, distant, almost bored. She doesn't look at you. She doesn't need to. You are not meant to exist. But still, you hear the music. And for a moment, as snow falls and steam rises from your breath, the world softens. You keep sweeping. Your body aches. Your toes are numb. Your broom is falling apart. But the snow glitters in the early dusk, and the music floats like a secret. And somehow, you're still here, in the cold, in the silence, in the forbidden city. Section 13. You're scrubbing lacquered floorboards in the hall of benevolent peace when you hear them. Whispers. Not whispers like "pass the brush" or "do you think we'll eat today?" These are sharper, slippery, like silk drawn over a blade. You pause, cloth in hand, ear cocked toward the painted screen that separates the outer chamber from the inner rooms. The voices are urgent, too fast for comfort, too soft for clarity. But you catch fragments. Minister Wen's nephew. She wrote it in poetry. If the emperor reads it, the voices stop. Your breath halts mid-ribcage. You hadn't moved, hadn't spoken, but you'd heard. That's dangerous enough. You lower your head and resume scrubbing, heart thumping like a drum at a royal wedding. Moments later, a eunuch sweeps past the screen. He doesn't look at you, but the back of your neck feels suddenly exposed, like it's been marked. You scrub harder. See, in the Forbidden City, there are secrets thicker than the walls. The air itself is heavy with them. Every corridor hides a rumor. Every gesture could mean more than it says. And every servant, especially ones like you, is a walking ear. And ears can be dangerous. You're told never to speak of what you overhear, but no one tells you what to do with the burden of knowing things. Jun once warned you, if you hear something important, forget it fast, or learn to smile at ghosts. You thought he was joking, but now you're not so sure. Later that day, you're sent to clean a windowsill in the hall of spreading fragrance. It sounds lovely. It's not. There, tucked in the lattice, you find a scrap of paper. Delicate, folded, still warm from being recently held. You should ignore it. You really, really should. But your hands move before your head can stop them. You open it. It's a poem. Just 8 lines. Soft brush strokes. Something about longing, about watching snow fall, and waiting for a name that won't be spoken aloud. And at the bottom, an initial. Not a signature, just a single, careful stroke. You fold it quickly, too quickly, and tuck it under the edge of your sash. A mistake. You know it. But now it's yours. That night, Jun catches you staring into space. You finally confess, quietly. He doesn't scold you, doesn't even seem surprised. There are words in this palace that cost less to write and more to remember, he says. Bury it. I can't. Then burn it. You nod, but you don't. You read it again in the dark, the faint ink glowing in the moonlight like a forbidden breath. Historians still argue whether poetry in the Forbidden City was a tool of subtle rebellion or merely emotional escape. Concubines wrote it. Eunuchs smuggled it. Some emperors encouraged it. Others destroyed libraries because of a misplaced couplet. All you know is, this poem isn't just words. It's proof that someone inside these walls is feeling something they shouldn't. And you're now part of it. Days pass. The poem burns in your mind, even as your fingers blister from floor duty. You hear more whispers about someone being questioned, about a chambermaid going missing, about a letter intercepted. One evening, as you pass through a side corridor, a eunuch steps out of the shadows. You, he says softly. You freeze. He reaches into his robe and pulls out a brush. You dropped this, he says. You didn't. You nod anyway. Take it. Bow. He disappears. You don't sleep that night. You lie on your cot, eyes open, the brush tucked under your pillow, like it might protect you. The next morning, you burn the poem. You wait until the stove is empty, until the other boys are fetching firewood. You feed it in slowly, watching the characters curl into smoke. And just like that, it's gone. But not really. You still see the ink every time snow falls. You still hear the echo of those voices behind the screen. You never speak of it again, not even to Jun. But from then on, every time someone whispers too close, you walk away. Every time a servant lingers too long near a silk screen, you clear your throat. And when the new boy drops a folded note in the latrine corridor, you don't pick it up. Because now, you know, secrets don't stay secrets. Not here. Not ever. Section 14. There are punishments in the Forbidden City that aren't written down. The official ones, those are public, theatrical, heavy on ritual. A failed servant might kneel in the rain for a day. A eunuch caught hoarding oranges could be demoted to the latrines. A concubine found eavesdropping, vanished, elegantly, permanently. But then there are the other punishments, the ones behind the screens. You're sent to the rear corridor of the Hall of Prolonged Happiness, a name that honestly feels ironic, where a lacquered folding screen conceals the punishment area. It's not a dungeon. There are no chains. It's just a space. Quiet. Tucked between rooms used for ritual garment folding and incense storage. You only know it's the punishment zone because no one speaks near it. Not even the eunuchs, especially not the eunuchs. You're there today to clean the tiles. Naturally, it starts off normal enough. Your brush skitters across the smooth stone. A senior eunuch, Master Tian, stands nearby, silently sipping a bowl of medicinal tea. His face is unreadable, like a mask worn for too long. And then you hear it. A sharp crack, followed by another, and another. You pause. Tian doesn't flinch, just stirs his tea with slow, deliberate circles. Behind the screen, the sounds continue. Muted voices, hurried footsteps, the unmistakable thwack of bamboo against skin. It's measured, controlled, like music. But the worst part? The silence that follows each strike. No screams, only breathing. Short, ragged. You return to scrubbing, hands trembling slightly. June once told you that behind every punishment screen is a story no one wants to tell. Don't ask who, he said. Don't ask why. Just don't be next. And the tools vary. Sometimes it's bamboo rods. Sometimes it's slippers. Yes, actual shoes, applied with alarming precision. There's even a rumor of a silk punishment, where someone's back is whipped with thin ribbons until the skin welts into imperial floral patterns. Decorative discipline. Historians still argue whether these informal punishments were condoned by higher-ups or carried out as private justice among eunuchs. One thing's certain. They happened. Often. And they worked. Because fear is a better teacher than lectures. You finish the floor and bow. Tian gestures with 2 fingers. Dismissal. You don't need to be told twice. But as you step away, you glance, just for a second, through the slit in the screen. You wish you hadn't. Inside, a boy not much older than you is kneeling. His robe is crumpled. His braid is undone. There's a red welt on his cheek, shaped like a palm. Another across his shoulder. A younger eunuch stands nearby, holding a wet cloth that's already pink at the edges. The boy sees you. He doesn't blink, doesn't look away. And somehow, that's worse. You leave. That evening, in the dormitory, everyone is quiet. You don't bring it up. No one does. But the silence has a weight to it now. It presses down like humidity before a storm. Then someone mutters, "Was it about the candied plum?" Another voice, "No, it was the poem. Has to be." June doesn't say anything, just sharpens a broken chopstick with a stone. That night, you dream of screens, lacquered, painted with cranes and plum blossoms, but behind them, shadows, always moving. The next day, you get assigned to carry bundles of fresh robes to the laundry chambers. On the way, you pass Master Tian again. He doesn't look at you, but he speaks. "Eyes forward," he says softly, hands steady, tongue quiet. You bow deeply. "Yes, Master." It's not just advice. It's a lifeline, and you take it. From then on, you work faster. You bow lower. You speak less. And when someone nearby is scolded, you don't flinch. You just keep your hands moving. Because now you understand. Punishment here isn't about justice. It's about reminding you that you're always being watched. Section 15. You wake up one morning with a strange feeling in your gut. Not hunger. That's normal. This is different. Like your bones are whispering. Something's off. And you're right. Before you've even folded your blanket, the dormitory doors burst open. 3 eunuchs stride in, faces cold, eyes sharper than embroidery needles. Behind them, a 4th man, silent, robed in black. Not red, not gold. Black. Every servant stiffens. Even June sits up fast, because when a man in black visits your quarters, it usually means someone is going to disappear. He doesn't speak, just scans the room like he's measuring everyone's guilt. His gaze lingers on you for 1, 2, 3 breaths. Then he nods toward another boy, Leon, from broom duty. Quiet, kind, never late. He doesn't even get a chance to ask why. He's pulled up, marched out. No ceremony, no yelling, just gone. The door closes, and the silence that follows, it's terrifying. You go about your duties, like usual, sweeping, folding, serving tea to a eunuch who won't look at you. But your mind is buzzing. Where did Leon go? What did he do? More importantly, who told? You start to notice things, little things. A servant who used to whisper gossip by the latrines suddenly never speaks. A eunuch, always hovering near the hall of preserved harmony, seems to watch you more closely. June notices, too. You ever wonder how the censorate finds out everything? He asks one night, voice low. You nod. Because someone tells them. The censorate. Even the name is heavy. A secretive branch of palace oversight, designed to root out disloyalty. And yes, they monitor nobles, officials, even princes. But mostly, they monitor you. Their eyes are everywhere, hidden behind scrolls, lurking in kitchens, trailing you through side halls like shadows with ears. Historians still argue whether the Forbidden City's internal surveillance system was truly as vast as some documents suggest. But as a servant here, you don't argue. You just feel it. One wrong word. One sideways glance. One joke told too loud. And the men in black show up. June tells you about a boy who once drew a caricature of a eunuch on a rice sack. Nothing mean. Just a silly doodle. It was found. 3 days later, he was reassigned to mole watch duty in the Imperial Gardens. Which sounds fine, until you learn that it means sitting motionless in a tree pit for 12 hours a day, shooing away actual rodents. You still draw sometimes, but only with water on stone. It disappears after a minute. Safe art. Soon, a new rumor starts to swirl. Someone is passing messages between servant quarters and the inner court. Folded notes, whispers in stairwells, code words passed during towel exchanges. No one knows who, or so they say. But one thing's clear. Trust is wearing thin. You notice people talking less, eyeing each other more. Every laugh ends with a glance over the shoulder. Even in the dorms, whispers die mid-sentence. You catch June watching another boy, the one with a twitchy leg, and too many errands for his rank. "You think he's one of them?" you ask. June shrugs. "He never blinks. That's suspicious enough." You both smile, but only for a second, because in the Forbidden City, paranoia is the air you breathe. And friendships are made of rice paper, beautiful, fragile, and quick to burn. A week after Lion vanished, you see something that makes your stomach drop. A scroll, tucked beneath a basin, partly unrolled. It's a servant roster. Yours, annotated in red ink. Next to Lion's name, a symbol. You don't know what it means, but it's not there beside yours, or June's, yet. You re-roll it, quietly, neatly, and you walk away. From that point on, you stop asking questions. You speak less. You smile more. You pretend not to notice anything. Not the boy crying behind the laundry screens. Not the eunuch who suddenly asks you twice about your home village. Not the empty cot across from yours. Instead, you sweep. You bow. You disappear just enough to be forgettable. Because now you know the truth. The censorate doesn't need to scare you. They just need you to wonder. Section 16. The stables smell exactly how you'd expect them to, like hay, manure, and a hint of something ancient and majestic, which you're pretty sure is horse breath. You've been reassigned, just for a week, to the imperial stables. A rare and slightly mysterious honor. Rare because stable duty is technically considered an outdoor specialist role, and mysterious because you're not entirely sure how a floor-scrubbing hallway runner like you ended up here. Jun suggests it's because of your quiet walking. Horses like quiet, he says with a smirk. Or maybe someone in charge lost a bet. Whatever the reason, you're here now, standing in a building twice the size of your sleeping quarters, filled with animals more pampered than ministers. The imperial horses are not your average village nags. These creatures are tall, muscular, and somehow give off the vibe that they know they're property of the emperor. Their coats gleam like polished furniture. Their manes are brushed and perfumed. Some even wear silk tassels around their necks, which honestly feels like overkill. But then again, if you were a symbol of dynastic power, you might want a little flair too. Your job isn't glamorous. You shovel dung, carry buckets, and brush flanks for hours. But you can't help it. You fall a little in love with these animals, especially one, a dapple gray gelding with a crooked ear and surprisingly kind eyes. The head stable eunuch calls him Cloud Tail. He calls you skinny boy. You don't mind either. Grooming is precise work here. Every stroke has to be in the correct direction. Every hoof scrubbed clean. Every bridle looped just so. And of course, silence is expected. No startling the horses. No singing. Not even quiet humming. One servant once got reassigned for sneezing during a feeding. Now he polishes chamber pots in the southern barracks. Despite the labor, there's a strange peace to the stables. The rhythms are slower, the expectations clearer. The horses don't care about your bowing form or your family background. They just want apples and clean straw. You find yourself breathing easier, moving more confidently. You even start talking to them under your breath. Nothing big, just stories, daydreams, little pieces of yourself no one else ever hears. Cloudtail twitches his ears when you talk. You take it as a sign he's listening. One morning, while you're raking the floor, you overhear something unexpected. Two officials, not eunuchs, standing near the entrance, deep in conversation. Their voices are low, but not cautious, like they assume no one worth worrying about is around. You freeze behind a stack of feed bags and listen. "Leaving for Johol next week," one says. "Taking 20 horses. The Emperor wants a quiet retreat." "And the 8th Prince," the other replies, "still pushing for his own detachment." They laugh. You don't understand all of it, but enough to know things are shifting. Somewhere beyond the walls you're allowed in, power moves like wind beneath silk, and you've just caught a draft of it. Historians still debate whether the imperial stables acted as informal information hubs, places where gossip trotted freely, hidden behind the pretense of saddle straps and oats. But you can confirm the horses hear everything, and so do the boys who clean their stalls. That night, you share a roasted chestnut with Cloudtail. You don't know who slipped it into your hand during firewood duty, but you don't ask. You feed him half, keep the other for yourself, and sit against the warm wall of his stall until your muscles stop twitching. On your last day, the stable master pats your shoulder. "You don't spook easy," he says. "Not bad." It's the highest praise you've received in months. You bow awkwardly and return to your regular post the next morning. The floors are colder, the hallways tighter, the people louder. But something has shifted in you. Because for a week, you weren't just a servant. You were a boy with a broom, trusted by a horse. Section 17. It begins with a breeze, a chill that snakes down the hallways of the Western Wing, far colder than the weather outside. You don't notice it at first. There are always drafts in the Forbidden City. But this one lingers, follows you, brushes your neck, no matter where you move. The older boys start refusing to clean there. The eunuchs grow quieter when assigning tasks in that direction. You, being young and still one bad footstep away from punishment detail, end up posted there anyway. The Western palaces are quiet. Too quiet. No footsteps, no voices, just the occasional creak of wood or rustle of a curtain that no one touched. It's supposed to be unused space, former residences of concubines who've either passed on, been relocated, or simply faded from imperial interest. Their names remain on plaques above the doors, faded gold characters flaking off into nothing. Your job is to sweep the corridor, polish a few panels, and check for dust in the side rooms. The assignment seems easy. That is, until you step inside one of the abandoned chambers. It smells faintly of old perfume and sandalwood. Not unpleasant, but too strong for a space that's supposedly empty. You notice that the bedding is still folded perfectly, that the incense dish holds burned ash, as if someone used it just last night, last asura, on the vanity. A comb. A single strand of hair, still curled between its teeth. You don't scream. You just back out of the room slowly, very slowly, like you're trying not to wake a snake. Later, in the laundry hall, you ask June about the Western Wing. He raises an eyebrow. "You went there?" "I was assigned." He lowers his voice. "They say one of the Emperor's favorite consorts died there. Unhappy. Young. Some say she was poisoned. Others say she took her own life." You stare. June shrugs. Either way, they didn't cleanse the room properly. Not the spiritual way. You wait for him to laugh, to dismiss it. He doesn't. Whispers about the Western palaces aren't new. Servants tell stories about doors that close themselves, mirrors that reflect people who aren't there, and low humming in the walls. One eunuch claims to have seen a figure in red silk standing by the fish pond after midnight, face turned away, unmoving. When he called out, the figure vanished, like a lantern flame snuffed in fog. Historians, of course, chalk much of this up to superstition. They say ghost stories in the palace were used to keep servants from snooping where they didn't belong. And maybe that's true. Maybe that's all it is. But that doesn't explain what happens to you the next morning. You return to finish your corridor sweep. The sun is barely up. You pass the room with the comb and quicken your pace. Just as you're about to turn the corner, you hear something. Soft, familiar, singing. A woman's voice, gentle and sad, carrying a melody you can't quite place. It echoes faintly, as though traveling through walls or time. You freeze, turn your head. Nothing. But the air is heavy now, scented again with perfume. And somewhere, not far off, a door creaks open. You run. Later, June finds you pale and sweating behind a pillar near the latrine corridor. You tell him what happened. He doesn't ask if you imagined it. He just says, "Next time, knock before you enter, even if it's empty." That night, back in your cot, you can't sleep. Not because of fear, exactly, but because of curiosity. Who was she? Did she really die there? Was she loved? Forgotten? You wonder how many other rooms hold stories no one dares to speak aloud. The next morning, you request a new assignment. The eunuch in charge doesn't ask why. He simply nods. You never go back to the Western palaces. But sometimes, when you pass nearby, you feel the same chill, the same breath of air that isn't wind. And if you're very quiet, sometimes you still hear the singing. Section 18. The Moon Festival should feel magical. It's one of the few times the palace permits the servants something close to celebration. The air smells faintly of lotus seed paste and roasted chestnuts. Lanterns hang like floating moons along the walkways, swaying gently with the breeze. Even the eunuchs seem a little looser. One of them actually smiles, briefly, before remembering where he is. You're given a fresh robe for the occasion. Not silk, of course. Cotton, faded, but cleaner than usual and only mildly scratchy. Someone even ties your braid with red thread. You glance in a bronze mirror and barely recognize yourself. Almost normal. The kitchens have been working for days to prepare moon cakes, those dense little pastries stuffed with dates, nuts, and sweetened beans. There's a rumor, almost too wild to believe, that the emperor himself is receiving a mooncake shaped like a phoenix, with a gold leaf crust. You believe it. Why not? If the son of heaven can't eat bling, who can? Your job tonight isn't terrible. You're on food delivery duty for the lower court celebrations. Not for the nobles, thank goodness, but for the mid-level staff hosting a lantern lighting ceremony in one of the outer pavilions. Basically, you get to walk around delivering trays, and if you're lucky, sneak a bite when no one's looking. You carry your tray carefully. Mooncakes stacked like edible coins, wobbling slightly with every step. The lanterns flicker around you, throwing long shadows that move like dancers. Somewhere nearby, a flute plays a lilting tune. It feels almost unreal, like you've stepped into a painting. And then you trip. You don't fall. You catch yourself. But the tray tips just enough for a single mooncake, just one, to slide off, hit the stone path, and land neatly at the edge of someone's embroidered slipper. You freeze. You look up. It's a young noblewoman, clearly high rank. Her robe is layered silk, with embroidered chrysanthemums. Her face, powdered just so. She looks at the mooncake, then at you. Your mouth goes dry. She says nothing, just steps back. A eunuch appears behind her, notices the scene, and his eyes narrow, like a trap closing. "Did you throw that at her?" He snaps. You stammer, shake your head, try to explain. But it doesn't matter. You're ordered to kneel, right there, in the middle of the festival walkway, with the moon shining above you and lanterns glowing all around. You drop to your knees while a string of insults rains down about clumsiness, disrespect, unworthiness. No one defends you, not even June. He's too far to interfere without risking his own hide. You lock eyes across the courtyard. He winces. That's the most he can give you. The punishment isn't heavy, just words tonight. But humiliation? That hits deeper than bamboo rods. Eventually, the noblewoman moves on. The eunuch waves you off. And just like that, the night resumes, as if nothing happened. You retreat behind a column, shoulders tight, fingers clenched. Someone slides a mooncake beside you on the ground. You look up. May, the kitchen girl, is already walking away. She doesn't say a word, just a glance, a tiny nod. Then she disappears into the shadows, her tray of sweets wobbling slightly, like yours had. You eat the mooncake slowly. It's filled with red bean and crushed walnut, sweet and soft, sticking to your teeth in a way that almost makes you cry. Later, during the lantern release, you don't participate. You just watch from the sidelines as the other servants light tiny candles and send paper shapes soaring into the sky. Some drift lazily upward. Others fizzle out early. One catches fire mid-air and spirals down like a star falling back to Earth. Historians often write about the Moon Festival in the Forbidden City with poetic admiration. Glowing lanterns, intricate dances, the emperor watching from his pavilion like a living constellation. They rarely mention the servants kneeling beside spilled cakes, or the way joy and fear can mix like sweet bean and bitterness in the same bite. That night, back in the dormitory, no one teases you. No jokes. No comments. Just quiet. June tosses you a folded cloth. Inside is a second mooncake. This one has a salted duck yolk in the center, your favorite. You bite into it slowly. It tastes like the moon itself, bright and heavy, somehow both comforting and sad. You fall asleep wondering what it would feel like to celebrate something without worrying if it would end in punishment, to enjoy a festival for its beauty, not just for its momentary distraction from fear. But even as that thought fades into sleep, the taste of sweet and salt lingers, just enough to remind you, even in the Forbidden City, even under the weight of protocol and paranoia, someone still thought you deserved another mooncake. Section 19. You're not supposed to notice other servants. Not really. Friendships are discouraged. Conversations are limited to necessity. Prolonged eye contact is frowned upon. And anything resembling feeling? Practically treasonous. So naturally, the more forbidden it is, the more impossible it becomes not to feel something. It starts simple. You and another boy, Kai, keep being assigned to the same hallways. First, it's sweeping the south corridor. Then mopping near the water pavilion. Then you're hauling firewood side by side. At first, it's just the same pace, the same rhythm. You lift when he lifts. You bend when he bends. And when you rest, you're leaning against the same cracked wall, breathing into the same cold air. Kai is a year older, or maybe 2, taller. He has that quiet confidence you envy. He walks like he belongs here, even if he doesn't enjoy it. His braid is neat. His robe is always cinched just right. He never gets scolded, never stumbles. He moves like a piece of the palace furniture, smooth and silent and polished. He also makes you laugh, which is dangerous. It's not loud, just little snorts when someone drops a scroll case or whispers the wrong ceremonial number and has to start over. He never laughs with his mouth, just his eyes. But you see it, you feel it, and once, when you were trying to carry too many lacquered trays down a slippery corridor, he caught one before it crashed. He didn't say anything, just handed it back with the faintest smile. That was the beginning. You started looking for him after that. Not obviously, just scanning faces when work details were posted, listening for his footsteps, waiting for the sound of his laugh, even just once a week. It's a subtle thing, quiet. But in a place where subtlety is the loudest language, it's also incredibly risky. One evening, you find yourselves alone in the bathhouse, long after the others have left. He's seated on the far side, head leaned back against the tiles, steam curling around him like a robe. You say nothing. He doesn't look at you. But as you leave, he says softly, "You ever think about after? After what? After this." He gestures to the marble, the pillars, the endless rules. After the palace. You pause. "No one really leaves," you say. He nods. "But what if we did?" And for the first time, you picture it. Not just escaping, but walking through a quiet village road, buying street food, hearing your own name out loud. Not boy, not runner, just you, with him. That thought keeps you warm for days. But of course, nothing good lasts here. The Forbidden City has a way of sniffing out joy like a bloodhound and swatting it flat. You're assigned to opposite shifts the next week. You don't see him at meals. His bedroll is moved to another barrack. You ask a eunuch why, and he shrugs. Too much chatting. You're not geese. You want to scream, but you just bow and walk away. Historians rarely write about affection among servants. If they do, it's always tragic, always footnoted with euphemisms and shame. But the truth is, when everything else is controlled, your schedule, your meals, your thoughts, the smallest flicker of connection feels like rebellion. And that makes it dangerous. You catch a glimpse of Kai again 2 weeks later. He's walking past the laundry gate, carrying a bucket. He doesn't look at you, but his hand brushes yours for half a second as you pass. It's nothing. It's everything. The next night, you find a folded piece of cloth beneath your pillow. Hidden inside, a pressed ginkgo leaf. It's yellowed and fragile, but perfect, preserved. You hold it in your hand for a long time. You don't cry. You can't. But you tuck it into your sash, close to your chest, and for once, the cold doesn't feel quite as sharp. Section 20. There's a chamber tucked deep inside the Forbidden City, past the inner courtyards, and beneath a gilded overhang, carved with clouds and dragons, where rumor says the Emperor does things no one can explain. Not the usual stuff, commanding armies, writing decrees, tasting ceremonial tea 5 times. No, this is different, strange, personal. You find yourself near it by accident. You're delivering scrolls to a low-ranking eunuch in the inner archives when another door creaks open. One that wasn't supposed to. A gust of perfumed air escapes, thick with incense and something earthy, like crushed jade or dried herbs. 2 eunuchs walk past you carrying trays, and on one of them is a live cricket in a porcelain cage. A cricket. You blink. Out of the way, one hisses. You press yourself to the wall, but your mind stays where the tray just passed. A cricket. On a pillow. Under silk. Later that day, June tells you it's not a joke. He really does it, he says. The Emperor keeps crickets, talks to them. Why? Some say it calms him. Some say he thinks they carry messages from heaven. And the jade water? June shrugs. Bathed in it, once a week, mixed with dew collected from sacred lotuses, makes the skin glow. You stare. Oh, and he doesn't sleep in the same room twice in a row. That's a real thing, June adds. Security, or maybe feng shui, depends on who you ask. You want to scoff, but you can't. Because deep down, you get it. If you were the son of heaven, living inside a palace of 1,000 eyes and no true friends, you'd want control over something, even if it's just a cricket, or a pattern of rooms, or jade in your bathwater. Historians still argue whether these eccentricities were signs of instability or just ritual habits taken to the extreme. One emperor reportedly refused to eat until his fortune sticks matched the arrangement of his dreams. Another had a servant whose entire job was to breathe quietly during his morning nap. You don't think the emperor is mad. You think he's trapped, like you. One afternoon, you're called to deliver tea leaves to the Chamber of Quiet Fragrance, one of his preferred resting halls. The name is misleading. It's not quiet. It's too quiet. And the fragrance is overwhelming, like 50 incense sticks warring for dominance. You kneel, place the tea at the edge of the platform, and don't look up. But you hear something. A voice, low, not speaking to you. It murmurs in a language you don't recognize. Then, a laugh. Not cruel, not loud, just lonely. You don't dare glance. You wait for the bell to chime dismissal. It never does. Instead, a eunuch clears his throat, and you scurry backward, still on your knees, out of the chamber, and back into the relative comfort of not knowing too much. That night, June shares another secret. They say the emperor eats pearls, he whispers, crushed, mixed into congee. Why? To keep his spirit bright. Does it work? Do you feel any brighter? You both laugh, softly. But there's a pause after. A silence that says maybe, just maybe. You understand the emperor more than you should. Because even though you've never worn a golden robe or had 100 people bow at your sneeze, you do know what it's like to create rituals just to feel safe. To count steps, to fold things just so. To carry little tokens of meaning. A pebble, a leaf, a silent song. You wonder if the emperor has a hiding place, a favorite corner, a piece of memory tucked away in silk, like you with your ginkgo leaf. You never see him during these moments, only his trail, the scent of oil, the echo of his slippers, the rustle of robes in a hallway you're not allowed to enter. But you know he was there. And maybe he knows someone like you was, too. Section 21. The eunuch, lord they assign you to, is named Master Shen. He's not the most powerful man in the Forbidden City, but he might be the scariest. He wears his rank like armor, his robes always lined with crimson trim, his fan always half open, even when it's freezing, his voice always gentle, which somehow makes it worse. Your new assignment is to assist him. You're not sure how you got it. Maybe someone noticed your quiet demeanor. Maybe your name came up in a rotation. Or maybe the censorate wanted to keep you closer to the fire. Either way, you're now shadowing Master Shen for a week. He doesn't speak to you for the first 3 days. Just gestures. You carry his documents. You prepare his inkstone. You wait while he naps with a silk cloth over his eyes. He doesn't thank you. He doesn't scold you. He just notices. And that alone makes your stomach hurt. By the 4th day, he speaks. Tea, he says, without looking at you. You scramble to pour. You place it exactly where you've seen him prefer. 2 fingers from the edge of the desk, handle turned inward. He lifts the cup, sniffs, and after a pause, nods. That nod feels like a medal. Later that day, he glances up from his scrolls. You've been in the palace how long? You answer, 1 year, 5 months, and still alive. Impressive. You don't know whether to smile or apologize. You do neither. He fans himself slowly. Tell me, boy, what's the most important thing to remember here? You hesitate. Say the first thing that feels true. Don't be remembered. He laughs. It's a short, surprising sound. Good, he says. Very good. From that moment on, your tasks shift. You're no longer just handing over brushes. He starts giving you errands, delivering sealed notes, placing wrapped bundles in designated corners of random halls, lighting a lantern, and then immediately extinguishing it 5 minutes later. You don't ask why. You just obey. June notices. You're in the inner games now, he says one evening, poking at a boiled taro root. Be careful. Is he dangerous? You ask. All of them are, June replies. But Shen's the kind that smiles while sharpening the knife. And yet, you like him. Not trust him, never that. But there's something compelling about his presence. He sees more than most, maybe more than anyone. He watches ministers pass by and mutters things like, he's limping now. Interesting. Or, his robe hem was 5 centimeters higher than last week. Curious. One afternoon, He calls you in with a flick of the fan. "You're quiet," he says. You bow. Useful, but don't mistake silence for safety. Even dust leaves a trail. You nod. Then, softly, he says, "Do you know why I chose you?" You shake your head. "Because you're not desperate." You don't reply. You don't know what to say. He waves you away. Later, you find a sweet in your sash pocket. A red bean candy, soft and slightly warm. You didn't put it there. Historians often paint eunuch lords like Shen as manipulators or power hoarders. And maybe they were. But they were also survivors. Men who had lost everything. Names, bodies, families. And rebuilt themselves inside walls designed to erase people. Master Shen doesn't want your friendship. He wants your efficiency, your obedience, and maybe, just maybe, your potential. You carry out his tasks without error. You keep his secrets, and in return, he keeps you alive. At least for now. Section 22. Spring arrives like a whisper in the Forbidden City. The snow melts reluctantly. Puddles gather in the corners of courtyards, reflecting gold-tiled roofs like fractured dreams. The plum trees blossom first, shy and trembling. Then the magnolias burst open, their petals so white they make you squint. With each sunrise, the air grows softer, warmer, but also more tense. Because spring isn't just a season here. It's a ritual. And rituals mean ceremony. You're assigned to assist with the spring rites this year, one of the biggest annual events in the imperial calendar. An offering to heaven and earth, performed with ancient precision, meant to bless the coming harvest and ensure harmony across the empire, which sounds noble until you realize your role mostly involves carrying heavy objects with shaking hands and praying you don't sneeze on something sacred. You start your day before dawn, dragging bundles of ceremonial silks from the textile office to the ritual grounds. Each color has meaning. Green for growth, gold for prosperity, red for protection. You're warned not to mix them up. You double-check every tag, twice. At the altar site, eunuchs bark orders like generals. The platform must be swept 7 times in 7 directions. The sacrificial vessels must be aligned according to the stars. Incense must be lit at precisely the 3rd drumbeat. No sooner, no later. You're given a robe to wear. Not yours, not comfortable. It's too long and embroidered with symbols you don't understand. A fellow servant whispers, "It's only for ceremony. Don't trip. Last year, someone tripped." What happened? He just stares at you. You try not to breathe too deeply. Everything smells of sandalwood and fresh earth. You carry bronze urns filled with offerings, grains, dried fruits, polished stones. They're heavier than they look, and your arms burn from the strain. Still, you move slowly, reverently, like you're carrying the weight of an entire season. Because you are. As the sun rises over the palace walls, the ritual begins. The emperor doesn't attend this one himself. Too minor, perhaps. But his officials do. They line up like chess pieces in silk, bowing in unison, faces unreadable. You kneel behind a row of lanterns, gripping a small offering dish with white knuckles. The prayers are chanted. The offerings are presented. The wind picks up at exactly the right moment, swirling incense into the sky like smoke signals to the gods. You want to believe it means something. Jun told you once that the spring rites are older than the forbidden city itself, that emperors used to offer human sacrifice. You laughed, thinking he was messing with you. He didn't. Historians still argue whether such rituals were ever truly effective or just public theater, power disguised as piety. But when you're there, bowing beside an altar while drums pound like a second heartbeat, it feels real. Your hands go numb from holding the offering dish too long. Your knees ache from kneeling on stone. And still, you don't move. Because to flinch during a rite is to insult the heavens. You think of the fields beyond the city, of farmers watching the sky, of your mother, maybe, back in Shaanxi, planting seeds and whispering to the soil. Would she know this ceremony was performed for her? For the rice and wheat and barley she hopes will grow? Probably not. But you do. When it's over, you're ordered to carry the ashes of the incense out through the north gate. You're not told why, but you've learned not to ask. You walk slowly, alone, holding the silver basin with both hands. The ashes swirl gently, still warm, like a sleeping breath, as you pass through a quiet garden. A magpie lands on the path ahead. You pause. It hops once, looks at you, then flies away. You don't believe in omens, but you still smile. That night, your hands smell of ash and sandalwood. You can't wash it off. You don't try. Jun hands you a steamed bun he stole from the kitchens. "Spring favors the brave," he says with a wink. You eat it slowly, thinking of altar smoke and golden silk. And for the first time in a long while, you fall asleep, not thinking about survival, or rules, or mistakes. You fall asleep, thinking about seeds. Section 23. One morning, just after the spring rites, you're called to the Pavilion of Literary Brilliance. The name sounds impressive, but you're not being invited to read poetry or copy calligraphy. You're there to clean. Naturally. Still, there's a weight to the place. Even before you enter, you feel it, like the air is thinking too hard. Inside, the walls are lined with scrolls, manuscripts, volumes bound in silk and tied with care. Wooden shelves stretch floor to ceiling, each labeled with tiny gold characters. The room smells of dust, ink, and age. This is where the emperor's scholars gather, where strategies are born, where knowledge lives, and where you, at this very moment, are on your knees with a rag, polishing baseboards beneath a table full of men who might decide a province's fate before breakfast. One of them sneezes. Another keeps muttering dates under his breath, like he's fighting with the calendar. A third is sound asleep, head tilted at an alarming angle, mouth open. No one wakes him. You scrub quietly, but your ears work overtime. Names drift through the air. Governors, generals, trade routes, even murmurs about new taxes on salt. You have no idea what any of it means, but you memorize the sounds anyway. You've learned that power rarely shouts. It whispers. A junior clerk walks by, arms full of scrolls. One slips. You catch it before it hits the floor. He looks startled, then grateful. He doesn't say thank you, just nods, but his eyes hold yours for a breath longer than usual. You're dismissed before lunch and sent back to your regular corridor. Later that day, while folding robes in the laundry hall, you find something tucked in your sash. A note. Not paper. Fabric. Soft, inked with small brush strokes. Just 2 lines of poetry. The pen is a blade, sharper than 1,000 spears. No signature. You tuck it away. Fast. Heart pounding. The next day, you're summoned again. You're not given a reason. Inside the pavilion, a different scholar asks you to fetch water. Then ink. Then to deliver a sealed letter to the southern gate, without delay. You run like your life depends on it. Because, in the Forbidden City, sometimes it does. Over the next week, you keep being pulled in. Small tasks, short errands, no explanations. Each time, you hear a little more. One day, a scholar reads aloud from a history of rebellions, emphasizing certain phrases like their secret code. Another time, someone slides a book into your hands to return to the archives. Except the title doesn't match what's inside. You don't open it. You want to? You don't. Historians still puzzle over how many quiet plots brewed beneath the roof of the pavilion. There were coups that never happened, edicts that vanished before being issued, ideas that flared and died in ink. But for the men working there, and now, you, knowledge wasn't just power. It was danger. June notices your new routine, raises an eyebrow. Is this why you've been walking like your robe's on fire? You shrug. He leans closer. Be careful. Information smells sweet right before it poisons you. You want to say you'll be fine, that you're just a runner, that no one would bother with a servant who doesn't even get real shoes. But deep down, you know better, because when you're in the pavilion, moving among men whose words shape policies and destinies, you can feel the crackle of something more. You're not just wiping floors, you're walking a wire. One wrong word, one misplaced glance, and you'll fall. But for now, you balance, and you listen. And somewhere, tucked inside your robe, the fabric note rustles faintly, like a paysage waiting to be turned. Section 24. The rain starts before dawn, not the kind that drums on rooftops and fills the stone basins with song. This rain seeps, slips, sinks into everything. The kind that turns corridors slick, makes robes stick to skin, and drags your mood into the mud before your feet even leave your bedding mat. You're ordered to latrine duty. A punishment? Not officially. But when assignments rotate strangely, and your name appears twice in the same week for the worst possible task, you understand. Someone noticed something. Or maybe someone imagined something. Either way, you're now the proud handler of waste buckets in the most sacred city on earth. The latrines are tucked near the outer edge of the servants' quarter wall. Brick structures with stone floors and long, narrow trenches underneath. Some parts are indoors, others only half covered. They say the emperor has a personal chamber pot of white jade. You are not so fortunate. You carry the buckets 2 at a time. They're heavier than you expect, sloshy. You learn quickly to walk slow, avoid puddles, and breathe through your mouth. Jun offers you a strip of mint leaf to chew. Won't make the smell disappear, he says, but it'll confuse your brain just enough. You start chewing mint every day. The worst part isn't the smell, or the ache in your shoulders, or the way your skin tingles for hours afterward, like it remembers what you carried. It's the looks. Servants glance away. Eunuchs wrinkle their noses. Even other latrine workers act like you've joined a lower caste inside a caste. There's always someone lower, until there's not. You work in silence, days blending into each other like puddles in the rain. You scrub, you lift, you pour, you repeat. And somehow, that routine starts to steady you. There's something honest in the work. Nothing fake. No secrets. Just function. One afternoon, you're emptying a bucket near the western waste gate when a voice speaks behind you. You walk like a scholar. You nearly drop the pail. It's Master Shen, standing in the rain, holding a paper parasol that probably costs more than your yearly ration of steamed buns. You bow, hard. He watches you. Why are you here? You say the only true thing you can. I don't know. He nods, thoughtful. Then let's find out. He walks away, doesn't wait for a reply. You stare after him, soaked and trembling, unsure if that was a rescue or a threat wrapped in poetry. Later that night, June joins you on the steps of the bathhouse. You've already rinsed twice and still feel stained. You looked like a ghost when you came back, he says, nudging you with his elbow. Shen spoke to me. June straightens. During latrine duty? You nod. He whistles. Either he's bored, or you're in deep. Which would you prefer? June doesn't answer. Historians often gloss over the mechanics of waste in the palace. They speak of feasts, but not what happens after. They list ceremonies, but never who scrubs the stone after the nobles leave. But every palace, no matter how gilded, still has to dispose of its filth. And someone always carries the buckets. Tonight, your hands are raw, your arms sore, your pride cracked. But as you stare at the steam rising from the bathhouse, you feel something else, too. A strange kind of pride. You made it through. No spills, no complaints, no mistakes. In the Forbidden City, survival sometimes looks like disgrace from the outside. But up close, it's strategy. You chew another mint leaf, and you rest. Because tomorrow, whether they see you as a shadow or a ghost, or just another pair of hands, you'll still be here, quiet, careful, still walking. Section 25. You wake up to an unusual sound. Bells. Not the distant chime of temple wind bells, or the polite tinkle of court musicians warming up. No, these are low, deliberate, and solemn. They echo across the courtyards like ripples through still water. Something has happened. Within minutes, the dormitory stirs. Robes are pulled on, braids quickly tied, sandals slapped on with trembling fingers. You don't need anyone to say it out loud. You feel the shift in the air. Even the birds seem to sing quieter. June looks pale. He doesn't speak. A few minutes later, the announcement is made. One of the emperor's concubines has died. Not an accident, not old age. Whispers begin immediately. Was it illness? Poison? Suicide? You're assigned to assist with cleaning the southern pavilion where she stayed. You're not told why. Maybe just extra hands needed. Maybe someone wants you to see something. Or nothing. As you step through the carved doors, the scent hits you first. not decay. No. The body's already been taken. What remains is incense, thick, smothering, a floral sweet smoke that coats your throat and doesn't let go. The room is untouched, almost eerily perfect. Embroidered cushions still arranged in a fan shape. A silk robe folded neatly on the divan. A writing brush lying beside a paper filled with soft, round characters. Unfinished. She had been writing a poem. One character is smudged. Your job is to dust the carved screen, separating the sleeping chamber from the rest of the room. As you wipe each tiny lotus and phoenix motif, you can't help imagining her hands touching the same wood, laughing, crying, waiting, hoping, or maybe despairing. Another servant drops a porcelain cup. It shatters. No one scolds him. Everyone is too tense. You learn her name only in whispers. Lady Jen. No one uses her title now. Just the simple form, like a memory already fading. Historians write that concubines in the Forbidden City lived lives of privilege and luxury. Perfumed chambers, fine robes, endless servants. But that's only one side of it. The truth is, they were prisoners wrapped in silk. If the emperor favored you, you rose like the moon. But if he turned away, you could disappear like mist before morning. June tells you later that some say Lady Jen had been out of favor for months. Others claim she had become unwell. No one dares say more. But there's one rumor you can't stop thinking about, that she asked to return home and was denied. Even a bird in a golden cage eventually throws itself against the bars. After the cleaning, you're given a strange task. Carry a box to the archives. It's light. Inside are her belongings. Hairpins, scrolls, small trinkets. You glance once, just once, and see a pressed flower tucked between two slips of paper. A white chrysanthemum. You recognize the irony. Back in the dormitory, no one talks. The usual end-of-day chatter dies before it begins. You lie on your mat and stare at the beams above, replaying every moment inside that quiet, perfumed tomb. You wonder if anyone truly knew her. You wonder if he did. The next day, all signs of her are gone. Her name plaque removed. Her residence reassigned. Even the birds seem to avoid the eaves above her courtyard. The Forbidden City erases things with terrifying efficiency. But not from you. You remember. You remember the smudged character, the flower, the unfinished poem. And as you walk down the same halls she once did, something in you shifts. An ache, small but sharp, like a pebble in the soul of your memory. You tuck it away, but you don't forget. Because if no one else will hold on to her story, maybe you can, even if it's just in silence. Section 26. The rain returns a few days later. Summer rain this time. Heavy, warm, impatient. It beats against the rooftops like drums and sends servants scrambling with cloths to cover scrolls, sweep runoff, and close up windows that never quite stay shut. You're stationed in the Hall of Eternal Harmony. The name is misleading. Inside, it's chaos. The court is preparing for an imperial banquet. A diplomatic event, they say. Foreign envoys will be present. That means rare dishes, elaborate rituals, and absolutely no mistakes. You're assigned to the lower kitchen, which might as well be a war zone. There are shouting cooks, panicked junior eunuchs, scalding pots, and the thick, inescapable scent of ginger, vinegar, and roasting meat. You're tasked with prepping duck tongues. Yes, duck tongues. Dozens of them. They arrive in a lacquered box, raw and gray, flopping around like something from a fever dream. Your job is to trim, clean, and skewer them without grimacing too hard. June's beside you, slicing lotus roots with far more grace than you can manage. You know, he says, they say the foreign guests once thought duck tongues were a threat. Like we were trying to poison them with delicacies they couldn't pronounce. You laugh a little. Then a scalding drop of oil lands on your wrist, and reality snaps back. In the palace kitchen, nothing is safe. Not heat, not mistakes, not even smells. Everything must be perfect. You hear a boy get slapped behind you for over-frying a mushroom. Another is dismissed for presenting a dish a second too early. Historians often marvel at the grandeur of imperial banquets. Jade platters, sugar-sculpted cranes, whole fish arranged to look like they're swimming in the sauce. But they rarely mention the hours of sweat behind each grain of rice, or the 12-year-old boys plucking quail feathers until their fingers blister. You're lucky. You're not in the knife station. That's where the real tension lives. Master Gao, the head chef, is a legend in the kitchen. Rumor says he once cut a cucumber so thin it became invisible. He's tiny, terrifying, and absolutely devoted to silence. The only sound allowed near him is the chop of his blade. You pass behind him once, carrying a bowl of jujube paste. He stops, sniffs, then says, "Too much anise. Start over." It wasn't your dish, but you bow anyway and back out like a crab. That night, the banquet begins. You're not allowed in the hall itself, of course, but you hover just beyond the curtain. The scent of roast boar, sesame-glazed eel, and lychee wine wafts into the corridor. You glimpse embroidered robes, bright fans, distant laughter. And there, just for a moment, you see him, the emperor. He raises a cup, smiles. He looks ordinary, tired, even. Not the dragon-faced sovereign from scroll paintings, not the distant son of the realm. Just a man, eating duck tongue, and maybe that's the strangest part of the day. Later, as you and June rinse your hands in a shallow basin, he nudges your shoulder. "We made it," he says. You smile. Barely. He holds up one hand. 3 fingers are bandaged. "Worth it?" he says. "I stole a sugar swan." You gape. "Where is it?" He grins. "In my stomach." You both laugh for the first time in days. The rain has stopped by now. The courtyard smells of wet stone and ginger. You head back to your quarters, exhausted, sore, and weirdly proud. You fed the empire today, or at least helped feed the people pretending to run it. In the quiet of your mat, you think about that moment behind the curtain, that tired face, that human emperor, and you wonder how often he gets to laugh, or sneak sugar sculptures, or taste anything for himself. Probably not much. And that makes you grateful for your own stolen duck tongue. Chewy, salty, weirdly satisfying. The next morning, you wake up still tasting it. You call that a victory. Section 27. The summer sun hits hard and unkind in the forbidden city. By midday, the stone courtyards shimmer like boiling mirrors. Your robes stick to your back. Your breath feels too warm to be useful. And every job, no matter how small, feels like it was designed to melt you. You're assigned to the palace stables. A change of pace, they say. A light duty. Sure, the truth is, the stables are alive in a way the rest of the palace isn't. Horses breathe. They sweat, snort, stomp. Their scent is strong, earth, straw, and something ancient, something free. They're also moody. Your first horse is named Cloud Stepper. He immediately tries to kick you. Twice. The stable master, a weathered man with one eye and no tolerance for weakness, barks, "Don't flinch! They smell fear!" You flinch anyway. But you learn, fast. You learn to scoop grain without spilling it, to tie feed bags tight, to brush in firm, even strokes, to walk behind the horses at a polite angle, not too close, not too slow. You learn to shovel muck without gagging, and to talk softly, even when no one answers. Horses don't care about your rank. They don't care if you're the emperor or a street sweeper. If you approach with calm and offer something sweet, an apple slice, a bit of sugar, they'll listen. Some of the eunuchs like working here. Less politics, they say. Fewer eyes. Horses don't gossip. Horses don't scheme. Still, danger exists. Just yesterday, a courier boy broke 2 ribs when a stallion spooked. Another servant got bit trying to feed a mare before her water bucket. You wear bruises now, like jewelry. But you don't mind. There's something freeing about sweat and hay, even if your hands are blistered and your hair smells like stable walls. June visits once, smuggling a rice cake wrapped in lotus leaf. He squints at you. "You look like you've been wrestling demons." "I kind of have," you say, patting Cloud Stepper, who by now tolerates you. Jun grimaces. "You smell like divine punishment." You shrug. Historians rarely talk about the imperial horses. They focus on the riders, the parades, the symbolic white steed the emperor rides once a year. But the animals themselves? They're the silent workforce behind messengers, guards, processions. Without them, the palace wouldn't move. You begin to notice their personalities. One mare hums in her throat when she's brushed. Another stallion flares his nostrils at red robes, but not blue. And then there's the foal, barely a few weeks old, who follows you around like a shadow, nosing your sash for snacks. You name him Mooncake. Privately, of course. You can't have favorites, but you do. One late afternoon, while refilling a trough, you overhear 2 guards talking. "Heard he's inspecting the stables next week." "Who?" "The Emperor." You freeze. Surely not. But then the stable master starts ordering polish, extra feed, new red banners. A decorative harness is pulled from storage, embroidered with dragons in silver thread. It's real. The Emperor is coming. Panic sets in. You spend the next 5 days cleaning like your soul depends on it. Which, honestly, it might. Hooves are buffed. Stalls are scrubbed. Even the manure piles are stacked more attractively. And then, he arrives. No trumpet, no drum, just a quiet ripple through the palace as a small entourage appears by the east gate. At the center, a man in yellow silk, walking slowly, eyes alert but unreadable. He doesn't look like a god. He looks curious. He approaches Cloud Stepper's stall. The horse doesn't flinch. Good. The Emperor raises a hand. Cloud Stepper snorts. You stop breathing. And then, miracle of miracles, the horse bows. Just slightly. Just enough. The Emperor smiles. And that's when he notices you. You're standing too close. Too still. He studies you. Your mind races. What's the protocol? Bow? Speak? Disappear? But he just tilts his head. Do you like horses? You nod. Yes, Your Majesty. Why? They don't lie. A beat of silence. Then, that's true. He moves on. Just like that. No lightning. No punishment. No thunder from heaven. Just a moment. But it changes something in you. That night, you bring mooncake an extra bit of dried apple. He chews slowly, then nuzzles your shoulder. You sit beside him, back against the stall door, listening to the soft rustle of hay and the rhythm of breath. And for a few precious minutes, you forget the rules. You're just a boy in a stable, sharing silence with something that trusts you. And somehow, that feels like freedom. Section 28. Summer deepens, and with it comes the mosquitoes. The palace becomes a battlefield, not between armies, but between skin and sting. You scratch behind your ear for the 50th time before breakfast, and consider offering your soul in exchange for a moment's peace. They're especially brutal in the evening. Every lantern you light attracts a vortex of fluttering wings. The eunuchs hand out small bundles of mugwort to burn near sleeping mats, but it only works until midnight. After that, it's just you, your blanket, and whatever blood you have left. Tonight, however, you're on night duty. That means patrolling the outer garden walkways, making sure no unauthorized person is where they shouldn't be. A cruel assignment, because night is when the stone paths hold the day's heat like coals, and shadows stretch just a little too long. You walk alone, a lantern in one hand, the other tight on the sash of your robe, like it might protect you from whatever your imagination's cooking up. The garden is supposed to be still, but the Forbidden City is never truly quiet. Crickets chirp, frogs croak from hidden corners, and sometimes you hear footsteps when no one's there. Or are they? You tell yourself it's just the wind, until you hear singing. Soft, female, coming from the other side of the lotus pond. You stop. No one is supposed to be there this late, especially not someone singing a folk song about a lost fisherman and the moon. You creep closer around the stone railing, heart thudding. There, by the water pavilion, a girl sits on the edge of the walkway, feet dangling above the pond. Her robe is pale lavender, almost glowing in the moonlight. She sings with her back to you, each word slow, haunting. You know you should report her. You don't. Instead, you clear your throat. She turns, not startled, just mildly amused. Oh, she says. You're not a ghost. You blink. Neither are you. She smiles. That's what a ghost would say. You don't know what to do with that, so you set your lantern down and sit, one stone tile away. She introduces herself as Leon. No title, just Leon. She's a servant, too, apparently. assigned to the embroidery house. Says she sneaks out sometimes when the thread starts talking back. You talk to thread? She shrugs. Only when it misbehaves. You laugh. And you haven't laughed, really laughed, in days. You ask what she was singing. A story, she says, from my village, about a fisherman who fell in love with the moon. He kept rowing out every night, trying to reach her reflection. One day, he never came back. Why? Depends who tells it, she says. Some say he drowned. Some say the moon took pity and lifted him up. You sit in silence for a while, watching moonlight ripple across the water. Then she says, you have the face of someone who wants to leave. You look at her. Don't we all? She nods. But you look like you might. That night, you return to your mat with something strange blooming in your chest. Not love, not yet, but possibility. Historians almost never mention these meetings, these midnight conversations between two nobodies in a palace full of power. But these are the moments that keep you sane, that remind you you're human, that you're more than just a set of duties in a roster. Over the next week, you spot Lian 3 more times, always after dark, always near the pond. You talk about dreams, stories, places you've never been. She teaches you a knot pattern that protects against bad luck. You teach her a shortcut through the laundry hall. She sings you the rest of the fisherman's song. You hum along, badly. And for a moment, maybe more than a moment, you start to wonder if the forbidden city, for all its walls, might have cracks in it after all. Small ones. Just enough to let in moonlight. Section 29. 2 weeks pass, and the moon waxes full again. You're assigned back to the Pavilion of Literary Brilliance, now handling courier scrolls. It sounds fancy, but mostly involves running messages between scholars, too tired or too self-important to walk down the corridor. Still, it gives you access, words, secrets, and something else. Lian. She's been reassigned nearby to help with silk covers for imperial books. You catch glimpses of her in the courtyard, holding a bundle of red threaded fabric, or squinting at patterns under the mulberry trees. She doesn't always notice you, but when she does, she grins, and it makes your ribs feel too small for your heart. You don't dare speak during the day, but at night, if the moon is kind, you meet again. One evening, you bring her a piece of jujube cake stolen from the kitchens. She brings you a folded square of silk. What's this? You ask. A charm, she says. Unfinished. Inside, stitched in delicate gray thread, is a rabbit in the moon, half-formed, as if leaping, but never landing. You run your thumb over the shape. I can't finish it, she adds. Not yet. You nod, not asking why. Some things shouldn't be rushed. You tuck it inside your sash. And that's when you realize you're in trouble. Because this quiet thing, this nightly slipping into laughter and whispered stories, is dangerous. It's not just company anymore. It's escape. And escape, in the Forbidden City, is a crime, even if you never leave. Historians sometimes hint at romantic entanglements between servants. They call them dalliances or transgressions, reducing moments like this, these small, sacred collisions, to footnotes. But they never capture what it's like to live in a place where everything you do is watched, and yet, somehow, you find someone who sees you. You don't kiss. You don't touch. You don't dare. But every night, you sit by the pond, just close enough that your knees nearly touch, and that's more intimate than anything else you've ever known. One night, as the stars bloom above the walls, she asks, "Do you ever think about the outside?" You nod. "Where would you go?" You pause. "Anywhere with trees that aren't trimmed into shapes." She laughs. "And I want to see snow. Real snow. Not just the kind that falls and melts before we can even lie in it. Let's make a deal," you say. "One day, if we ever get out, we'll find snow." She grins. "And rabbits. Obviously." You don't promise anything more, because you know better. The palace has a way of taking things. People, moments, hopes. One day, you'll wake up, and someone like Leon will just be gone, reassigned, silenced, forgotten. So for now, you just hold the silence together, like it's a fragile bowl of water. That night, back in the dormitory, June stares at you. "You've been humming," he says. You blink. "No, I haven't." You never hum. You shrug. He doesn't push. He just sighs. "Be careful with soft things. This place eats them." You lie down and close your eyes, and all you can see is the half-stitched rabbit, mid-leap, still hoping, still moving, still free. Section 30. You're jolted awake by shouting, not the usual grunt of a grumpy eunuch, or the bark of orders echoing down corridors. This is sharper, urgent, and it's coming from the north side of the servants' quarters. June is already halfway to the door by the time you swing your legs off the mat. When you reach the courtyard, the scene is chaos. 2 guards are dragging a boy, someone from the lower kitchens, by the sleeves of his robe. He's crying, stumbling, shouting that it wasn't him, that he didn't know. A 3rd guard carries a sealed wooden box. You don't have to ask. He tried to steal something. Not food, not thread. Ink sticks. The fancy kind, used for imperial correspondence. The kind that bears the mark of the dragon seal. Everyone around you knows what that means. It's not just theft. It's treason. They'll say he intended to forge a decree, or sell it to someone with that intent. Whether it's true doesn't matter. What matters is that someone, somewhere, needs to be made an example of. Later that morning, the courtyard is scrubbed. The guards don't explain. They don't need to. The boy is never seen again. And just like that, the air in the servants' quarters turns thick and heavy, like steam that never lifts. June stares at his bowl of rice that evening, without touching it. "He was 13, he murmurs. "Didn't even know how to read." You don't say anything, because now you're thinking about your fabric note, the half-finished rabbit from Leon, the quiet moments under moonlight that now feel risky, even dangerous. The Forbidden City is a furnace. It doesn't burn you quickly. It slow cooks you. Until one day, you realize the heat has seeped into your bones, and you're afraid to even hold a memory. That night, you don't go to the pond. Leon isn't there anyway. You tell yourself it's coincidence. But the next night, she's gone again. And the next. By the 4th day, panic sets in. You ask discreetly. A glance here. A question there. Nothing obvious. But no one seems to know. Or worse, they do know, and just won't say. Jun corners you one afternoon. You're walking like your feet are on glass. What happened? You hesitate, then say it. She's gone. He doesn't ask who. He doesn't need to. His face softens, and he says something you'll never forget. The palace takes the best first, to hurt the rest. That night, you sit by the pond anyway, alone. The moonlight is too bright, the water too still. You take out the charm Lian gave you, the silk square, rabbit mid-leap. You turn it over in your hands, again and again, waiting for her voice to call out from the shadows, laughing at how dramatic you're being. But the shadows are empty. You consider throwing it into the water. You don't. Instead, you stitch. With a sliver of stolen thread and a needle borrowed from the laundry hall, you add one tiny stitch to the rabbit's outline, then another, then one more. It's not perfect, but it's moving, and that, somehow, makes it feel like she's still near. Historians never mention Lian, or people like her, the soft ones, the ones who bring moon songs and silk charms and jujube cakes folded in lotus leaves. They never list their names in court records, never write about their laughter. But you remember. You will remember. Because forgetting would mean the palace wins. And you're not ready to let it. Not yet. Section 31. The season turns again. But this time, you don't notice. Autumn used to mean crisp air, the scent of dried persimmons, and that rustle of silk robes brushing against golden leaves. But now, everything feels muted, faded, like someone turned down the color of the whole palace. Lian's absence hangs on your shoulders, heavier than your uniform robe. You still work. You still obey. You still smile when expected. But your steps are slower. You startle easier, and when you pass the lotus pond, you don't look directly at it anymore. Jun notices. Your eyes are too quiet, he mutters one morning over sweet potato porridge. That's when people get in trouble. You offer a weak smile. They were never that loud. He doesn't laugh, just stares at you for a long time, then says, "Don't disappear, too." You want to tell him you're still here, that you're fine. But those words feel like lies, and you've had enough of those lately. Instead, you throw yourself into work. You take extra shifts, volunteer for laundry duty, hot, endless, bone-wringing laundry duty. You find peace in the rhythm of it, the slap of wet cloth, the hiss of steam, the clean scent of boiled jasmine water used for rinsing the Empress's undersleeves. And every so often, between washes, you pull out the little square of silk from your sleeve and run your fingers over the rabbit's outline, now nearly finished. You add one more stitch every week, slowly, deliberately, like a promise. One day, you're called to the office of appointments. You expect to be scolded, reassigned, maybe punished. But instead, you're offered a promotion. Not much. A minor clerk position, scroll sorting, dust counting, ink cataloging. You accept without hesitation. Historians love moments like this. The rise from lowly servant to someone with a desk and a lamp. They spin it as triumph. But you don't feel triumphant. You just feel changed. Your new duties place you near the Hall of Supreme Principle. That means more eunuchs, more silence, more watching. Every word spoken carries weight. Every pause in conversation could end a career or a life. You learn fast. You learn not to ask questions when two seals appear on a document that used to need only one. You learn how to identify which messengers carry bad news by the tilt of their shoulders. And you learn that ink isn't just black. It's political. The thickness, the scent, even the speed at which it dries can betray secrets. Jun visits once, standing awkwardly beside your desk while you catalog inkstones. He looks at you like you're wearing someone else's skin. You look like a shadow pretending to be a boy, he says. You smile. It's better than looking like a target. He doesn't disagree, but he leaves a steamed bun on your desk before he goes. That night, you stay late, sorting scrolls long after the corridor is empty. The lantern casts a soft circle of light around you. Everything else fades into the dark. You pull out the rabbit again. One stitch left. You hesitate, then finish it. The leap complete. You don't cry. You just breathe. Slow, even. Like you've been holding it in for months. And maybe you have. Historians might one day read about someone like you, a servant who rose through quiet corridors, who passed beneath red beams and gold dragons without being devoured. They won't know your name. They won't know hers, but you'll know. You'll remember the song, the silk, the moonlight. And in the morning, when you rise and bow and walk past the pond again, you'll look, just once, and in that still water, you'll see not just your reflection, but hers, leaping, free. Section 32. You're 17 now, or maybe 18. You've lost track. Birthdays blur inside the walls of the Forbidden City. No cakes, no candles. Just another day of protocol, dust, and duty. Still, something in your body feels different. Taller, heavier, quieter. The boy who first stepped through the palace gates, wide-eyed and scared of the sound his own sandals made. He's long gone. Your hands have changed. Stronger, more precise. Your voice, too. You speak less, but with more care. You no longer flinch when eunuchs raise their voices. You bow, wait, and walk away before the second scolding lands. That's survival. You've settled into your clerk role. Most of the day is spent hunched over scrolls, re-inking faded stamps, recording name after name, dynasty after dynasty. It's not glamorous, but it keeps you off the floors and away from the harsher corners of the city. It also means you hear everything. Who's been promoted? Who's under investigation? Which consort fainted during morning court? Which general hasn't written back? And, just occasionally, which servant has vanished without a reason? You write down names with a brush that rarely hesitates, but sometimes one name will make your hand tremble. You never see Leon's name, not once, which is almost worse than seeing it in the wrong place. June has been reassigned, too. You rarely cross paths, but when you do, there's a weight between you. Not unfriendly, just worn. "You still stitch that thing?" he asks one day, gesturing toward your sleeve. "Finished it?" He nods, doesn't ask more, but you can tell he's relieved, like a chapter has closed, even if the story still aches. Autumn nears its end. The trees shift from gold to brittle brown. The palace prepares for the Festival of Lights. Every year, paper lanterns are released into the sky, 1,000 small prayers drifting over the red roofs. Servants get a few too, if you behave. You do. This year, you receive a single lantern, red with a bit of gold trim. You're allowed to write one wish on it. You sit with the brush for a long time, and then you write, "Let memory be enough." The wind is cold that night. You light your lantern at the far edge of the servants' compound, away from the noise. Others shout and laugh as their lanterns wobble into the sky. Yours rises slow, steady. You watch until it's just a red dot in the dark. You wonder how far it'll go before the wind takes it. Maybe to the wall, maybe beyond. Historians adore the Festival of Lights. They describe it as a symbol of unity, of collective hope, of the emperor's shared joy with the people. But you know better. It's a moment of sanctioned dreaming, permitted only once a year, extinguished by dawn. Still, for that moment, it feels real. You return to your dormitory and unfold Lion's charm one more time. The rabbit's leap is finished. You press it flat, and for the first time, you consider making another, not to replace her, but to remember who you were, with her. That's something the Forbidden City can't erase, not unless you let it. Section 33. Winter doesn't arrive so much as ambush you. One morning, you wake up, and your breath fogs the air. The stone floor beneath your mat burns with cold, and your fingers refuse to bend properly until you slap them awake. The whole palace shifts. Coats come out of storage. Coal braziers hiss back to life. And every servant becomes a little meaner. Less talk, more shuffle. Your robes are threadbare. You wear 2 layers, then 3. June gifts you an extra pair of socks, probably stolen, and warns you not to thank him too loudly. "You say it out loud, and someone'll take mine," he grumbles, adjusting his hat like a grandmother. The snow comes a week later. Real snow. Thick, silent, blanketing the courtyards like a secret being kept from heaven. You're sent to sweep the walkways near the pavilion of supreme ceremony, a ceremonial chore, which means doing a perfect job without disturbing anything important, like statues, altars, or the endless parade of very important people walking directly through your clean paths with no shame. Still, when no one's watching, you lift your face to the sky and let the flakes melt on your lashes. You remember what Lion said, how she wanted to see snow, and you say her name, quietly. So quietly, the wind doesn't even notice. One afternoon, your scroll work is interrupted. A eunuch appears, face unreadable, and tells you to follow. You walk, not fast, not slow. Through 3 gates and 2 hallways you've never seen. Into a side courtyard with no name. Inside waits an old man in a pine green robe, surrounded by boxes of sealed scrolls and half-dried ink sticks. He doesn't look up. "You're the quiet one," he says. Yes, you reply. He gestures. You copy well? Yes. Good. I need 10 scrolls by next week. Identical script. No smudges. No mistakes. He slides the first one across the table. You glance at it and nearly drop the brush. It's a military report. High level. The kind of thing you're definitely not supposed to read, let alone rewrite. You don't ask questions. You just begin. Every stroke you make is a whisper you weren't supposed to hear. Troop movements, food shortages, anxious reports from border provinces. Historians write about great campaigns and dramatic battles, but they never show you this part. The weeks before, when everything is made of nerves and guesses and hasty plans penned by candlelight. You copy until your fingers ache. You finish the last scroll on the third night, alone in the flicker of a dying lantern. You roll it with care and leave it where instructed. The next morning, the old man is gone. So is every scroll. You're never told why you were chosen. You're never asked to do it again. But after that, your assignments become easier, warmer. You're allowed to stay near the heated archives during deep cold. You get first pick of firewood. Someone, no one ever says who, makes sure your lunch is always hot. June notices. Did you get adopted by a secret society of old scholars? You smirk. Not yet. But the truth is, something's changed. You're trusted, or tolerated, or maybe just known. And in the Forbidden City, that can be both shield and target. And one night, June and you stand near the wall, watching snow fall in the lantern light. He's quiet for a while. Then he says, "You ever think about what happens when we're old?" You blink. Old? Yeah. Gray hair, shaky hands, boring stories. You chuckle. If we make it that far. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You think they let us stay? You don't answer. Because you know the answer. Servants rarely retire. They vanish, get reassigned to the outskirts, or, if they're lucky, are sent to a temple to rest. You and Jun both stare into the dark. Then he says, "I want to live long enough to bore someone to death with a story." You nod. You want that too. Just one person. Listening. Remembering. Section 34. By late winter, the palace becomes a painting in shades of gray. The ponds freeze over. The air smells like wet ash and steamed cabbage. Every footstep echoes too loud, too long. It's the season of cracked lips and sore joints, and you learn to breathe through a scarf tied tight around your nose to stop your lungs from aching. The days get shorter, or maybe they just feel that way. One morning, you're summoned unexpectedly to the Bureau of Rites. It's rare for a servant of your rank to be called there. The Bureau handles the highest rituals: royal weddings, ancestral offerings, state funerals. Their offices smell like dry incense and ink rubbed into eternity. You're ushered into a small record room. A senior clerk, thin as dried bamboo, hands you a ledger. "I want this entire book copied. Identical format, same brush weight, same punctuation." You nod, take it gently, and settle into a quiet corner with your tools. As you open the first page, your breath catches. It's a registry of offerings, tributes made to imperial ancestors over decades. But tucked among the dragon seals and lacquered names are occasional annotations in the margin, small, personal notes in a different hand. Too much saffron used this year. The Dowager Empress wept for nearly 10 minutes. Servant boy fainted, revived with vinegar. It's like finding fingerprints inside history. You smile, then you see it. Halfway down the 31st page, scribbled next to a ceremonial silk order. Leon, 3 nights without rest, stitched the rabbit for luck. You freeze. Not a common name. Not here. Not with that detail. Your heart doesn't race. It pauses, then thumps once, like a drum calling down a mountain. You read the note 10 more times. It's her. She was here. She mattered enough to be written down. You sit with the ledger for a long time, tracing the brush strokes with your eyes, barely breathing. Then you turn the page and begin copying. Carefully, faithfully, as if she can still feel every motion through time. That evening, the moon is soft and thin, like a smile half kept. You go to the pond again. The ice has started to crack in places, tiny fault lines crisscrossing like veins under glass. You sit on the same stone where you first met her. The wind is sharp, but you don't flinch. You pull out the rabbit charm from your sleeve. You've kept it all this time. The thread is a little faded now, the fabric worn. But the shape is still there, leaping forward, ears back, hope tucked into motion. And you whisper aloud, just once, "You're still here." Historians don't write about Leon. They don't write about the boy in the archive who found her name. But that's okay, because you will. Not on scrolls, not in gold, not in the emperor's records, but in stitches, in memories, in quiet prayers said beside a frozen pond. One day, if you ever leave this place, you'll plant something in her name. A mulberry tree, maybe, or just a single flower. And when it blooms, you'll sit beside it and hum her song about the fisherman and the moon. And it'll be enough. Section 35. Spring returns without fanfare. One day, the pond is ice. The next, a single green shoot pierces the mud. Then, suddenly, there are plum blossoms again. Quiet explosions of pink on the otherwise stern branches, lining the outer walls. You blink and wonder if you missed the transition entirely. But maybe that's how it always is here. Change happens in silence. The palace shifts with it. Court robes go lighter. Braziers are removed. The scent of fresh bamboo returns. You notice more laughter among the younger servants. Not joy exactly, but less exhaustion, less winter. You're still at your desk, but you've learned to listen better. When a guard coughs near the gatehouse, that's a sign of new arrivals. When a senior clerk sighs twice in the same sentence, an official has lost favor. You speak less, but no more. Sometimes that's the best armor. June appears one day with a wrapped bundle. "Don't ask how I got it," he mutters. Inside is a steamed bun, still warm, filled with pork and mushroom. You stare at it. He shrugs. "It's spring." You eat it in 4 bites. That night, something pulls you back to the lotus pond. The water is soft again, rippling under a lazy breeze. You sit on the same stone as before, the rabbit charm in your pocket. You haven't sewn another since finishing it. You haven't needed to. Instead, you've started writing, quietly, carefully, not with brush and ink, too risky, just with charcoal and scraps, folded and hidden. Little moments, names, details, a record of everything they won't remember. You don't know why. Maybe it's to keep her close. Maybe it's to keep you whole. The city behind you is waking up. New concubines arrive. A foreign envoy is rumored to be bringing a glass mirror as tall as a man. A celebration is being planned for the emperor's birthday. Everything spins on. But you sit by still water, and you remember. Historians will tell you the Forbidden City was built to last forever, that its walls held back time, that its roofs gleamed with divine favor. But you know the truth. It was also a place where boys grew old before their time, where songs were whispered and lost, where a single stitch could hold the weight of a life. And as you stand up and stretch beneath the plum trees, you feel the strange, quiet peace of someone who survived, not conquered, not escaped, just endured. And somehow, that feels like enough. Because now, when you look around, you don't just see gold tiles and stone paths. You see stories. Yours. Hers. All the quiet lives that passed through like breath. You walk back slowly, the rabbit charm warm against your palm. And for the first time in a long while, you feel ready. Ready to keep going. Ready to keep remembering. And ready, one day, to leave. But not tonight. Tonight, you sleep. And you dream. Of moonlight on silk. Of a fisherman's song. Of snow that lingers. And of a rabbit, leaping. Still, always. Through the sky. Wind down. So now, as your breathing slows and your room darkens, picture the stone courtyards of the Forbidden City under a quiet spring night. No footsteps, no orders, just the wind drifting over roof tiles, soft and slow, like a lullaby you've heard before. Somewhere inside those walls, a boy, maybe not so much a boy anymore, sits beneath a blooming plum tree. He's not sweeping, not writing, not running scrolls through shadowed corridors. He's just still. And for once, that's allowed. His memories swirl like incense smoke, moments stitched together by silence and survival, names whispered into the dark, a song half sung, a girl who disappeared like morning mist, but left behind the shape of her hope. You've walked every step beside him. You've carried the weight of duty, tasted the fear in the air, and felt the rare warmth of friendship and stolen laughter. And now you can let it all go. The red walls fade, the lanterns dim, and in their place, peace. A soft pond under moonlight, a single rabbit leaping across the surface of your dreams. So go ahead. Close your eyes. Sink into the quiet. Let the past drift behind you like a paper lantern rising into the sky, weightless, glowing, carried by something gentle. You've earned your rest. End of story. Wish you have a sweet dreams.